Chapter 239. After getting out of the artifact, Lu Wu and Bailey looked at each other and smiled. They had gained a lot this time. It was because they had found a talented young man. The puzzles of the 258 checkpoints were personally released by Bailey a few months ago. The goal was to find a talented person with high IQ and talent, and to use him in leading troops in Battle Online. Although Battle Online had a large number of players, there was still a big gap, which was the lack of a talented military advisor. Although Lu Chai and Wu Gui had the ability to lead troops, they were still lacking in terms of ability in large-scale battles. At this stage, Beiki was about to start the Battle of New Territory, and Lu Wu was desperate for such a talent. Although he had found many capable players in the forum, they were still far from what Lu Wu needed. Lu Wu was troubled at first, but he did not expect Bailey to tell him that someone had solved the puzzles released 3 months ago and had entered the final stage. Bailey had to personally solve the last stage. She used the artifact to disguise herself as a white-haired old man to play chess with Yin Xiaoqi, who had solved the puzzles. After all, her existence could not be exposed. In fact, Yin Xiaoqi was completely at a disadvantage. She could not explain the assumptions given by Bailey at all. However, that was not what Bailey wanted. She wanted to know what Yin Xiaoqi was thinking when she was faced with these questions. In the end, even though Yin Xiaoqi could not prove it, she still insisted on her point of view, which was acknowledged by Bailey. Therefore, after Yin Xiaoqi threw out the theory of, "I think, therefore I am," Bailey chose to go easy on her and let her pass the test. This was because Yin Xiaoqi had proven her talent and met Bailey and Lu Wu's requirements. The 258 questions ranged from astronomy and geography to various kinds of commanding troops and battle formations, as well as various kinds of academic research. Although Yin Xiaoqi relied on the convenience of the internet age to search for a lot of answers, it still proved her own talent. Even though she had no experience in leading troops to war, Lu Wu wanted her talent, which could be cultivated in the game. Therefore, she had been recorded in the booklet of talented players by Lu Wu. The next thing to do was to bring her into Battle Online. The virtual interface slowly appeared in front of her. Yin Xiaoqi took off the virtual reality helmet without hesitation, a look of lingering fear on her face. Everything that happened just now was so real that she even thought that she was really just a brain soaked in nutrient solution. Real? Illusion? Yin Xiaoqi touched her cheeks and fell into a state of doubt. Not only did he create such a realistic virtual environment with just a link, but how did he manage to control my virtual equipment and confuse my brain? If it was a hacking technique, Yin Xiaoqi would definitely scoff at it, because she was one of the top hackers in the world, and it was impossible for her to do it. A technology that far exceeds current technological development? Supernatural abilities? Extraterrestrial technology? Yin Xiaoqi's mind was in a mess. However, the person who claimed to be Bailey left behind too few clues. She could not find any clues. At this moment, she recalled Bailey's last words before she left that strange world, which was, "I'm going to kill you. I can't prove whether it's true or not, because it's just my guess. I don't want to think about it anymore. I'll go crazy if I think about it anymore." Yin Xiaoqi threw the virtual reality helmet on the ground angrily and turned her head to the screen. "I'd like to see what the final treasure is." At this moment, the screen showed an envelope that was burning with purple flames. Yin Xiaoqi moved her mouse over the envelope, and her face was in a dilemma. She had to admit that the experience just now had scared her. She was afraid that the treasure in the envelope was something that would make her doubt her life. Open it? Not open it? After struggling for a while, Yin Xiaoqi clenched her teeth and opened the envelope. Suddenly, the flame on the screen seemed to be about to burst out, and the envelope slowly opened under the burning flame. "Congratulations, you've successfully passed all the levels. The following link is the wealth that I've given you. Enter that world and receive your exclusive reward. Hint: don't doubt, don't try to prove anything, just like what you've experienced in the last level." What is reality? What is illusion? Whatever you think it is, it's what it is. Reading the contents of the letter, Yin Xiaoqi's face showed a shocked expression. Why does this sound like a spam ad? After thinking for a while, Yin Xiaoqi clicked on the link to see what it was that made it sound so mysterious. However, before that, she decisively took off the virtual reality suit that she was wearing and kicked the virtual reality helmet away at the same time to prevent herself from falling into the trap again. After all, the previous encounter had traumatized her, and she was afraid that the link was also a trap. However, after clicking on the link, Yin Xiaoqi was even more confused. Slap! She slammed the keyboard fiercely, and a furious expression appeared on her face. Because she felt that she had been fooled. After spending a few months of hard work, the treasure turned out to be this thing. At this moment, the screen displayed the download address of the game Battle Online. At the bottom of the game, there was a line of words. This game has been developed meticulously for 10 years, and its authenticity is close to 100%. This website explicitly states that there is no top-up entrance in this game. If it was possible, Yin Xiaoqi would like to see that old man who called himself Bailey again, and then give him a series of chokehold, eye-piercing, and scissors kicks. I've put in so much hard work, and it turns out to be a promotional advertisement for a game? It's fine if you give me millions of consolation money, but this treasure is too perfunctory and excessive. Yin Xiaoqi gritted her teeth in hatred, but she had nowhere to vent it. She felt that her little heart had been greatly stimulated. Ding! Download complete. At this moment, the system notification sounded. Yin Xiaoqi raised her head abruptly, and then realized that her computer had automatically downloaded the game. Am I infected with a virus? This was Yin Xiaoqi's first thought. Then, she quickly began to clean up the computer files, trying to find the hidden virus in the computer. However, no matter how hard she searched, she could not find the computer virus that might exist. In the end, Yin Xiaoqi had no choice but to clench her teeth and reformat the entire computer. However, after rebooting, Yin Xiaoqi was shocked to find that the game icon still appeared on the computer desktop. Was it another supernatural technology at work? After a moment of silence, Yin Xiaoqi shifted her gaze to the Battle Online icon on the computer desktop. She did not like to play games, and she had never paid attention to the matters of the gaming circle. However, she had to admit that she was curious about this game now. Do you think that I, Yin Xiaoqi, am afraid of death? Baring her canine teeth, Yin Xiaoqi stood up and picked up the virtual reality suit and virtual reality helmet that she had thrown on the ground. After putting on the suit, Yin Xiaoqi clicked on the interface, selected Battle Online, and started the game. She felt weightless, and when the image became clear again, a character selection interface appeared in front of Yin Xiaoqi's eyes. However, before she could see it clearly, the image changed again. Then, she realized that she had appeared in an unfamiliar world. Blood-colored drizzle, gusts of cold wind, pedestrians walking on the streets, everything was so real, just like what she had experienced before. Could it be that I have been thrown into a new paradoxical world again? F***CK. Bailey, you old man. Chapter 240. Standing on the street of the Mansion of the Dead, Yin Xiaoqi gritted her teeth angrily. Even until now, Yin Xiaoqi had never thought that this was a real game. After all, everything was too realistic and could not be achieved with the current virtual technology. After trying to calm herself down, Yin Xiaoqi began to observe her surroundings, trying to find clues to solve the mystery of this level. Yin Xiaoqi's attentively scanning her surroundings immediately piqued the curiosity of a few players around her. Newbie? What's your class? Do you want to join our guild? Don't think that our guild is not doing well now. That's because we came late. We'll definitely make it into the top 100 guilds in the future. After all, our guild leader is... Listening to the man in front of her, Yin Xiaoqi began to analyze the hidden clues in his words. However, she soon felt that something was amiss. Dungeon. Forming a party. Farming monsters. Leveling up. Although she did not play games much, she deduced a possibility from the man's words, and that was that this was really a game world. In order to verify this, she tried to summon the operation panel. Battle Online's game panel instantly appeared, neatly arranged with the shop, character panel, and other functions. Is this really a game? Yin Xiaoqi raised her head and asked the man in front of her with a serious expression. The man had a strange look on his face when he heard that. What do you mean? Yin Xiaoqi frowned and did not speak. Instead, she quickly ran toward the area where the players were concentrated. After half an hour of investigation, she confirmed her point of view from the few words exchanged by the players. However, Yin Xiaoqi still had a huge doubt in her heart. Why have I never heard of a game with such advanced technology? At this moment, Yin Xiaoqi suddenly recalled a piece of content that she had read on the dark web. It mentioned that there was a highly realistic game in the world, but the entrance to this game was very mysterious. Moreover, it was said that dying in the game would also cause damage to oneself in reality. At that time, Yin Xiaoqi scoffed at this piece of information, thinking that it was just a deceptive rumor. However, she suddenly believed it now. Moreover, she suspected that she was currently in the scene of that underground game. This made Yin Xiaoqi inexplicably nervous. After all, if she got hurt in the game, she would also get hurt in reality. This was no small matter. She was basically playing the game with her life. What are you thinking about? At this moment, a figure appeared beside her and looked at her with a smile. Bailey. Seeing the newcomer, Yin Xiaoqi took a cautious step back and got into a fighting stance. Don't overthink it. How can there be a game in reality where you get injured in the game and receive the same feedback in reality? Bailey, who had transformed into an old man, looked at Yin Xiaoqi and said with a smile, "How do you explain such a high degree of realism?" Yin Xiaoqi did not let down her guard at all. She lifted her right leg slightly, looking like she was going to kick at any time. Bailey held her forehead. Don't you know that there's a game called Battle Online? If you don't understand, perhaps you can try to understand? Really? Really? Then what about the treasure that you promised? Why is this game the final treasure? Yin Xiaoqi once again flashed her sharp canine teeth. Next, you will receive an ultimate mission. Complete it according to the steps, and you will obtain an unexpected reward. I guarantee that you will not be disappointed. Don't try to trick me again. I won't fall for it. I've never lied to you. Believe me, you'll love this gift. Who are you? Why are you doing this? Bailey shook her head. Don't ask why. Remember what I said before, whether it's real or illusory, it's whatever you think it is. From now on, your mission begins. Rely on your own talent to grow, don't let me down. Under Yin Xiaoqi's astonished gaze, Bailey's figure drifted away with the wind. Game notification. Unlocking the first round of the Ultimate Chain mission. The beginning of greatness, mission introduction. Build your own guild and become one of the top 1,000 popular guilds in Battle Online. Mission reward. An exclusive inherited character class. Hidden mission reward. Looking at the contents of the mission panel, Yin Xiaoqi was astonished. Although she was not interested in playing games, this completely realistic world did arouse her curiosity. She could not help but want to explore the secrets hidden in it. However, what she wanted to know now was whether such a game really existed in the market. Thinking of this, she clicked on the interface again and selected the option to exit the game. As the screen gradually dimmed, she returned to reality. Seeing that she could exit the game easily, Yin Xiaoqi's worries faded a lot. Then, she quickly went to the computer and began to search for information about Battle Online. As pieces of information appeared, Yin Xiaoqi fell into deep thought. Many game videos, expansion packs, strategy databases built by players themselves, monster atlases, and various analysis posts. All these information proved that this game really existed. However, a game with such a high degree of realism had actually appeared in this era, and it had only been released for 5 months. This was truly shocking to her. Others might not be aware of the information contained within, but she thought of many aspects. First of all, such a highly realistic game could be used for military simulations and various scientific research experiments. This was similar to a game called Eve, which provided a huge amount of data support for the Human Protein Atlas project. Such a technology with such great potential value was only used for a game. Yin Xiaoqi could not understand this. If she were to put herself in Battle Online's shoes, she would definitely build a huge business empire and apply this technology in various fields to create more value for herself. Therefore, she could not understand the actions of Battle Online. Also, who was that Bailey? Could she be a member of the research team of Battle Online? After pondering for a moment, Yin Xiaoqi, who could not figure it out, continued to search for relevant information, looking for clues. However, there was no information about the research team behind the game on the internet. She could not find any useful information, no matter how hard she tried. However, the more she learned about this game, the more curious she became. Because according to the description of the information, the game world was more exciting than one could imagine. It even mentioned that the strengthening of the body in the game could be synchronized with the feedback. This made Yin Xiaoqi's heart itch, and she could not help but want to experiment. After spending half a day to understand the various contents of Battle Online, Yi Qianqian's heart skipped a beat. Yin Xiaoqi came to a conclusion. The so-called final treasure was actually a slot for a special player. She did not have a character selection interface like other players when she entered the game, but there was an additional ultimate mission. As for the reward of the so-called inherited character class, in the first round of the ultimate mission, Yin Xiaoqi was completely shocked after looking up the relevant information. This virtual item known as the inherited character class was priced as high as 50 million yuan. Many people were buying it online, but the transaction record was 0%. It was really a treasure. At this moment, Yin Xiaoqi's heart was restless, and she was eager to give it a try. Was building a powerful guild the first step of the mission? How could it stump me? Thinking of this, Yin Xiaoqi put on the virtual reality helmet again. This time, the hesitation in her heart was gone. All that was left was the ambition to achieve great things. Chapter 241. With Lu Wu and Bei Li's expectations, Yin Xiaoqi, an extremely talented person, officially joined the game Battle Online. She did not disappoint Lu Wu and Bei Li. Although she did not have a beginner class, she quickly figured out a set of methods to quickly kill monsters and level up in the early stages through the strategy posts of the professional players in the forum. In just 3 days, without buying any soul coins, she established her own guild in the game. Everything was as Bei Li had expected. She had begun to gradually reveal her talent in the game. Lu Wu and Bei Li would not be able to provide her with any help as to whether or not she could rely on her own talents to command Beiqi's troops in every foreign war. She could only rely on herself to slowly build up her prestige among the players. This was also a necessary step to continue the ultimate quest. Moreover, Lu Wu was sure that after knowing the contents of the hidden rewards after completing the ultimate quest, Yin Xiaoqi would definitely be firmly tied to his pirate ship made of Altman alloy. Recently, when Lu Wu was about to issue a strategic probe mission to the land of the 9 luminaries, bad news came from the European server. Although the territory of the European server had expanded a lot compared to before, the overall development was obviously accelerated. However, as time passed, Yuanxiu had already recruited most of the old troops of Tsangshu. Soon, he would be integrating the military forces of the entire land of Tsangshu. When that time came, the strength of the Xian Su army would never be able to compete with Yuanxiu, unless all the players of Beiqi went to support them. At this time, the forum of the European server was already discussing countermeasures. High Delay Warrior, Europe, I think if we wait for Yuanxiu to integrate the army, we can retreat from the Hidden Dragon Zone first and come back when we are stronger. Otherwise, we won't be able to defeat them. Star Universe, Europe, at this stage of the war, it's not a problem to deal with an army of ghost generals. However, if it's a joint army of several ghost kings and ghost generals, then we definitely have no hope of winning. We can consider retreating. Knight of the Abyss, Europe, in fact, as players, unlimited resurrection is our biggest advantage. We will definitely win if we fight a war of attrition. We can choose to retreat and develop first. The Flash, Europe, don't. I have feelings for the Hidden Dragon area. I don't want to leave. Let's fight to the death. Don't we still have our brothers in Bakey? Another expedition will do. Crayon_Shinchan replied to the Flash. We're also looking forward to the return of the expedition. However, because Yuanshu's strength has reached the Ghost Emperor realm, we won't be able to defeat him in a direct confrontation. However, it's still possible to wear down their military strength with a few more wave. Laughing emoji. Now, the European server players were very worried about the possible arrival of Yuanshu's army. Many players expressed their opinions. Basically, they were either evacuating or hoping that the Bakey Expeditionary Army would come to their aid and defend with their lives. However, with Yuanshu's strength, even the original server players were not optimistic that they could defend the Hidden Dragon army. After all, they had witnessed the combat prowess of a Ghost Emperor, and the current strength of the players was definitely no match for it. Just when the European server players were at their wits' end, a player posted a suggestion thread. Soon after, this suggestion thread quickly became a hot topic among the players of the European server and the original server. Regarding the possibility of a war between the army of Xian Su and Yuanshu, I have a suggestion. Everyone can refer to it. Author: Yin Xiaoqi is a big sister. Subject: I'm a newbie. Before participating in the discussion of this topic, I've looked through many videos and information to understand the specific situation of the European server at this stage. The cause of everything is Hu He, the Great Demon King's daily digging of natural disasters. I've also learned more about Hu He, the Great Demon King. Let me first pay my respects to Hu He, the Great Demon King. His ability to cause trouble is maxed out. He's really amazing. However, did anyone notice a problem? The natural disasters that are Hu He, the Great Demon King, often dig out are indiscriminate. As long as it's a living creature, it will devour it. Extending from this question, what if we let Hu He, the Great Demon King, out in the land of Tsangshu and let him unleash his destructive talent at will, digging out a large number of natural disasters that have been sealed since ancient times? At this stage, if Yuanshu wants to unify the land of Tsangshu, it is inevitable that he will destroy the army of Xian Su. However, at this time, there are many natural disasters that are a greater threat to his territory. What will he do? If you're Yuanshu and a large-scale natural disaster breaks out when you're about to unify the land of Tsangshu, would you first suppress the natural disasters that have a greater impact on your rule over Tsangshu, or let the natural disasters wreak havoc and suppress the extremely weak army of Xian Su first? The basis of my opinion is that Yuanshu doesn't know the potential of the players, and he doesn't know that the players can be resurrected. In fact, Yuanshu really doesn't understand the players. Therefore, I'll make a suggestion here. Close the door. Magnify the Great Demon King. The appearance of this suggestion post immediately caused quite a stir in the local server and the European server. Crayon_Shinchan. Awesome. Awesome. Why didn't I think of that? Fight fire with fire, relying on the tumor to dig out the natural disasters to contain Yuanshu. I give this suggestion full marks, it's definitely feasible. High delay warrior, Europe, sure. Moreover, our army of Xian Su can take advantage of the natural disasters to speed up our development. I agree. Knight of the Abyss, Europe, I agree. If I were Yuanshu, I would definitely suppress the natural disasters first. After all, the army of Xian Su is just a weak force that has occupied the Hidden Dragon district. It's not worth mentioning. Xueli_the_strongest. 666 Is the OP really a newbie? You've thought it through. This move of fighting fire with fire is really useful. Invincible_loneliness. The OP thinks from a tricky angle. Are you interested in joining our myth guild to develop? Handshake. In Xiaoqi is a domineering lady. Watermelon_taro. I have my own guild. Let me make an advertisement. My guild's name is Battle. We only accept elite players who can pass my assessment. Yay! Watermelon_taro. The great demon king can finally show his prowess in front of the expectations of the people. This time, dig as much as you can. The great demon king will probably be very happy. Laughing emoji. Taoist_zombie_hunter. Have you guys asked me? Is it really okay to make a decision on my own? I refuse. I swore that I would never dig again. I'm already traumatized. Squatting in a corner. JPG. Crayon_Shinchan replied to Taoist_zombie_hunter. I'm giving you a look full of justice backstabbing. Feel it yourself. Laughing emoji. Under the repeated persuasion of the players and the guarantee that they would let him out of the safe zone and that there would be no interference from the justice backstabbing, our great demon king, who he finally gave in. He decided to take action personally and turn the land of Tsangshu upside down. In fact, who he had long wanted this day to come. The reason why he declined and refused was to wait for the players to give him a follow-up guarantee. Moreover, he could resume his old business of digging up corpses and seals. Needless to say, who he was overjoyed. Therefore, on this day, who he puffed out his chest, raised his shovel, and stepped out of the halo of the resurrection point amidst the cheers of the European server players. Taking a deep breath of the fresh air outside the resurrection point, Huhi's face revealed an intoxicated expression. He had already forgotten how many days and nights he had spent in the resurrection point. Finally, such days had come to an end. From now on, I'm the savior. Chapter 242. Battle Official Forum. The live streaming section was extremely lively. One of the live streaming rooms had a horrifying number of over 9 million viewers. It could be said that most of the players in the game had come to this live streaming room to watch the live stream. That was because this time, the most lethal villain, Hu-He, was going to live stream the excavation of the seal. As requested by the majority of the players, I will live stream the excavation of the seal. This time, I represent justice, I am the savior. In the live streaming room, Hu-He held a shovel in his right hand and a compass in his left. He was walking in a swamp area. Beep, beep, beep. Accompanied by the sound of the compass, Hu-He stopped in his tracks. Cha-Na's zombie spirit immediately took a step forward, took over the shovel from Hu-He and started digging with all its might. The players in the live streaming room were looking forward to it. Although they had always heard about Hu-He's destructive power, it was their first time watching a live stream. They were filled with curiosity. Under Hu-He's command, Cha-Na's zombie spirit dug with all its might. In a short while, a black cave was dug out in the muddy ground. This time, Hu-He, who had no psychological burden, looked at the cave and chuckled. He then took out his searchlight and other tools and leaped into the cave. After landing, Hu-He began to explore the environment. The interior was like an underground palace. The ground was covered in moss and cracked green stone slabs. The searchlight's light could not reach the end after scanning around. The surroundings looked extremely empty. Although the zombie energy index is not as high as when I dug Yuanshu, it's still relatively high. There's definitely a big zombie here. I have to confirm if there's a seal here, Hu-He said as he raised the searchlight and moved forward. The stench of decay is heavy in the air, and it's slightly poisonous. This underground palace must have been built a long time ago, and judging from the toxicity in the air, I suspect that the poisonous swamp above was caused by this tomb. Luli said. Listening to Hu-He's explanation, the players' gazes followed Hu-He's footsteps and moved forward. Needless to say, the players were impressed by Hu-He's professionalism. His explanation along the way had also broadened their horizons. After walking for about 10 minutes, he found a wall covered in rust. There were many strange characters carved on the wall. Because these runes were severely damaged, even a divine artifact could not decipher their content. However, what piqued the curiosity of he and the players were the 6 pearls emitting a dark luster embedded in the center of the wall. Demon Sealing Formation, Seal. Item details. High-level seal array, formed by an arrangement of 6 demon sealing orbs. It cannot be broken without a specific method. Breaking it by force will trigger a taboo set by the person who laid the array. Damage, 0. 1%. He frowned when he saw the item's information. The seal this time was different from the others. It even set up a taboo to prevent destruction. He had seen this kind of seal in ancient books and had an impression of it. If he forcefully destroyed it, not only would he not be able to break the seal, he might even be sent back to the respawn point. Seeing that he was deep in thought, the players in the forum became lively. Crayon_Shinchan. Is it that difficult to dig out the seal? I thought it would be over with a shovel. Funny. Shueli_the_strongest. Go Demon King! You're the best. Watermelon_Taro. I suspect that he is a grave robber in real life. Call the police. Laughing emoji. After reading the comments, he shifted his attention back to the demon sealing formation. This was the first time he had encountered such a seal. For a moment, he did not know how to deal with it. However, it was not as if there was no other way. He opened the photo album and started flipping through the ancient books. The secret book of the Zombie Spirit Sect recorded many techniques used by the seniors of the Zombie Spirit Sect to deal with special seals during grave excavation. After flipping through the pages, he found a page that was written about how to break and deal with the demon sealing formation. After a careful look, he stood up and walked to the front of the demon sealing formation. He pressed his right hand on the demon sealing orb in the middle and began to push it down slowly. While the players were curious, he moved the 6 demon sealing orbs back and forth according to the method recorded in the ancient book. The luster on the surface of the demon sealing orb flickered and dimmed as he tried. About 5 minutes later, when he moved the demon sealing orb at the bottom to the middle position, all 6 demon sealing orbs flashed at the same time. Gotcha! Several cracks appeared on the 6 demon sealing orbs. A thick green mist spread out from the cracks. He took a step back decisively. Boom! Boom! At this moment, the underground palace began to shake. Under the astonished expressions of the viewers in the live streaming channel, the rusty wall slowly split open from the center and moved to both sides. When they saw the interior of the wall, both he and the players widened their eyes. Inside the wall was a huge green pool. Inside the pool were densely packed monsters that looked half human and half beast. At a glance, there were at least a few thousand of them, and this was only an estimate as far as the eye could see. Under the corrosion of the green liquid in the pool, the bodies of these hideous monsters quickly melted and turned into skeletons. However, this was not what shocked he and the players. It was the fact that these skeleton-like monsters would quickly regrow their bodies and rebuild their bodies. Shebi Zombie Clan. Character details. An ancient clan from the land of limited void. Cursed by the ancient gods, they lost their 3 souls and 7 spirit. Their flesh is immortal and they are in constant pain. Only by devouring the flesh and souls of others can they relieve this pain. Status. Unconscious. Seeing the information of these creatures, he grinned while the players in the forum cheered. Crayon_Shinchan. Awesome. After watching the whole live stream, I think we can't let this guy live. Let's first trick him into solving the crisis in the land of Tsangshu, then seal him with the resurrection point. It's too scary. Laughing emoji. Shueli_the_strongest. Awesome, awesome. Looking for the big tomb and breaking the seal. He's very skillful. But at the same time, there's an inexplicable sense of danger. Watermelon_Taro. The Great Devil King is really scary. No wonder he's recognized by the players as the most lethal villain. Laughing emoji. Cheated _8000 yuan. After watching the whole live stream, I want to say that I can't rest easy until the Great Devil King is sealed. But this time, we can dig without worry because it's what the people want. Laughing emoji. Taoist _zombie _hunter. You guys promise that you can't go back on your words. After seeing the players promise again, he felt more at ease. He then shifted his gaze to the pool in front of him. Now that the demon sealing formation was broken, it would be easy to wake up the Shebi zombie clan. As the players looked at him expectantly, he took out a stereo from the channel. After pressing a few buttons on it, the lights on the stereo started flashing and explosive music started playing. Waves began to rise in the green pool. The players watching were speechless. Chapter 243. As the players in the live streaming channel stared in bewilderment, he took out a sound system. The lights were flashing and the music was deafening. Ripples started to form in the green pool as the Shebi corpses opened their green eyes. Roar! The Shebi corpses roared furiously. Their bodies that had been dormant for countless years were finally awakened. At this moment, all the Shebi corpses stared at he with bloodthirsty eyes. Pain. Endless pain spread across their bodies. After awakening, they once again entered a stage where they would rather die than live. Under the ancient god's curse, their bodies were immortal, but they had to go through the soulless torture. They thirsted for fresh blood, and even more so for souls. At this moment, he was shocked to find a Shebi corpse in the middle of the pool that was obviously bigger than the others. It was glaring at him with eyes that looked like they were about to spit fire. Just as he was feeling puzzled, a server announcement appeared. Frowny face server announcement. In the land of Tsangshu, the ancient demon sealing formation has been broken by player The Shebi corpse clan has been born. This clan is cursed by the ancient god and has an immortal body. Players, please pay attention to your safety. Seeing that he had successfully completed the first mission, his face revealed a proud smile. Then, he shifted his gaze to the huge Shebi corpse and opened the analysis. Shebi General, Ghost King Peak. Character information: the most talented tribe leader of the ancient Shebi clan. He entered the ancient god's forbidden ground by mistake and plucked the ancient god's natal spiritual plant. He committed a heinous sin and the entire Shebi clan was implicated because of this. All of them became half alive, half dead, but immortal Shebi zombies. In the endless massacre, the Shebi general finally awakened a trace of his spiritual wisdom. He resolutely locked himself and his clan in the Shebi underground palace in an attempt to use the endless slumber to stop his clan from suffering and killing. Character status: soulless curse, soulless body. In this state, no matter how talented one is, one's realm cannot be improved without the support of a soul. Seeing this character's information, he was stunned. Now he knew why the Shebi general looked at him so angrily. The players in the forum burst into laughter. Surely the strongest. Poor Shebi clan. They finally stopped suffering, but they met the great demon king who dug them out by force. Crayon Shinchan. Great demon king, hurry up and tell him not to sleep. Wake up and get high. Tsangshu is so lively now, why would he need to sleep? Let's go. Assassin's Creed. Great demon king, want to sleep? No way. Dance your body to the music. A big wolf dog. Ha ha ha, he sealed himself. Awesome. Cheated 8,000 yuan from online dating. You want to sleep? Our great demon king said, no way. As long as I'm in this world, I'll admit defeat if you guys can't get high. In Xiaoqi is a domineering lady. I'm laughing so hard. I feel like I want to strangle the demon king right now. Watermelon Taro. The great demon king is mighty. The great demon king is the best. Reading the player's comments, he felt a little awkward. Kill. The She general's body gradually reconstructed itself. Then, it leaped out of the pool and leaped towards he. Seeing this, Hu He immediately put away all the tools around him and adjusted his pain to the lowest setting. Then, he opened his arms and welcomed death. Under the Shi general's rage, Hu He did not even last a second before he was torn into a black fog. Chi! With a sudden inhalation, the Shi general seemed to want to suck Hu He's soul out. However, Hu He's soul had already been stored in the artifact's channel. It was impossible for him to absorb it. After several fruitless attempts, the bloodthirst in the Shi general's eyes skyrocketed. Once again, he lost his mind under the endless torment. Roar! Accompanied by the Shi general's roar, the Shebi corpse in the pool also roared furiously. Then, it leaped out of the pool and followed the Shi general out. Flesh and soul, these were what they desired the most now. The time to kill had arrived. Although Hu He, who had dug out the Shebi clan, was already dead, he had fulfilled the player's request and brought an unkillable enemy to Yuanshu. However, this was just the beginning. When Hu He entered the cooldown stage of death, none of the players left his live streaming room. They were waiting for Hu He, the great demon king, to resurrect and stir up trouble again. 3 hours later, when Hu He resurrected at the resurrection point, he found countless players gathered near the resurrection point. All of them were staring at him expectantly. "Welcome back, great demon king! Welcome back, great demon king!" Seeing that Hu He was online, the European server's players began to cheer, looking forward to him showing off his skills again. Although it was very strange, the feeling of being valued still made Hu He feel a little touched. Thinking of his past experience of being hated by everyone, and then looking at how everyone expected him to be now. Perseverance was indeed the right thing to do. He had finally made it. Therefore, Hu He held his head high and left the safe zone amidst the players' cheers. He continued to search for the ancient sealed ground in the land of Tsangshu. The players finally saw how terrifying Hu He's lethality was in the next few days. Meanwhile, the European server was also completely lively. Server-wide announcement. The ancient winged serpent clan in the land of Tsangshu has been awakened by player Hu He. Players, please pay attention to your safety. Server-wide announcement. The Shadow God's remnant body in the land of Tsangshu has been awakened by player Hu He. This remnant body has lost its consciousness. Driven by instinct, it will devour flesh and souls to repair its remnant body. Players, please pay attention to your safety. Server-wide announcement. The ancient Black Kue Demon Tree's seal in the land of Tsangshu has been destroyed by player Hu He. This plant is extremely dangerous and has the ability to create plagues. Players, please pay attention to your safety. Server-wide announcement. The evil king in the land of Tsangshu has been awakened by player Hu He. This creature was formed from the evil thoughts of an ancient god before he became a god. Its strength has reached the beginner Ghost Emperor stage. Players, please pay attention to your safety. Server-wide announcement. The extreme spiritual wind has been awakened by player Hu He in the land of Tsangshu. This is an evil and intangible storm with intelligence. It is a natural disaster. This disaster will soon wreak havoc in the land of Tsangshu. Players, please pay attention to your safety. Server-wide announcement. The underground clan's seal connected to the surface in the land of Tsangshu has been destroyed by player Hu He. There is a high possibility that the underground clan will enter the surface. Their good and evil intentions are unknown. Players, please pay attention to your safety. From the initial shock to the subsequent numbness, the players no longer had the energy to complain about Hu He's lethality. In the short span of 3 days, Hu He had dug out more than 10 seals. Moreover, hidden within each seal was an extremely lethal existence. The emergence of these evil forces that were almost indestructible had caused the land of Tsangshu to become lively. The entire land of Tsangshu could be described as demons dancing in a frenzy. As the natural disaster wreaked havoc, the players who lived in the eastern corner of Tsangshu began to enjoy the show. Although they were also partially affected, the players were very happy. After all, they had already made preparations to evacuate. It could not be any better that the situation had turned out this way. Perhaps the natural disaster was an endless trouble in the eyes of others. However, in the eyes of the players, it was experience points and soul coins. Although it was troublesome to deal with, they were never tired of it. They were both in pain and in joy. At this moment, Yin Xiaoqi, who had gained the attention of the players, posted another suggestion. This time, her suggestion shocked all the players once again. Such a creative suggestion made everyone's scalp tingle. Chapter 244. Yin Xiaoqi had gained a lot of attention among the players after she suggested releasing the Great Demon King last time. This time, when she suggested it again, the number of views on the post increased rapidly. After understanding her suggestion, the players were once again impressed by her unique way of thinking. The newbie is giving another suggestion. I think the players of the European server can play this way. The original poster. Yin Xiaoqi is a royal sister. Subject. This suggestion was mainly made after analyzing the current situation of the forces in the land of Tsangshu. Just take a look. After all, it's just a suggestion. Whether it's implemented depends on everyone. Let's get down to business. First of all, I'd like to talk about our great demon king. He has recently created more than 10 natural disasters in the land of Tsangshu with his extraordinary talent. All of them were extremely destructive. The newbie pays his utmost respect. All hail the great demon king. I've been paying attention to this matter during the subsequent stage of the natural disasters, and I've discovered something interesting. There were many kinds of natural disasters this time. Apart from various bloodthirsty creatures and undead creatures, there were also natural disasters that had never appeared before. However, that wasn't the main point. The most important thing was that there was a very special and extremely powerful ghost emperor-level expert, the Evil King. The Evil King's introduction in the server announcement said that he was formed from the evil thoughts of an ancient god before he became a god. The Evil King also behaved completely differently from the other natural disasters. I'm not sure if anyone has noticed it. From the many posts describing the natural disasters, I discovered one thing. The Evil King was different from the other natural disasters. He did not cause great destruction after his appearance. Instead, he began to develop his own forces. He also learned from Yuanshu to recruit the ghost kings and ghost generals of the various forces in the land of Tsangshu. What did this mean? It meant that the Evil King was very ambitious. His goal was to become the overlord of the land of Tsangshu. At this stage, although the Evil King was alone, one shouldn't forget that he was at least a ghost emperor-level expert. Judging from the fact that he was only sealed but not killed, it was very likely that he would be extremely difficult to kill. With so many innate advantages, the Evil King dared to recruit so brazenly and openly. It could be said that he was not afraid of Yuanshu at all. Therefore, this was the current situation of the forces in Tsangshu. Player, hostile, Yuanshu. Player, hostile, Evil King. Player, hostile, various natural disasters Yuanshu, hostile, player, Yuanshu, hostile, Evil King, Yuanshu, hostile, disaster Evil King, hostile, player, Evil King, hostile, Yuanshu, Evil King, hostile, various catastrophes calamity, hostile, all forces because the natural disasters were unstable factors, they were the public enemies of all the forces. Even the natural disasters were hostile to each other. Therefore, if this unstable factor was eliminated, it would actually form a triangle of hostility. As the weakest faction, players didn't have the ability to contend against any faction at this stage of the game. From this, it could be seen that players were existences that could be wiped out at any time in a hostile environment. I couldn't help but have a thought. Isn't Evil King recruiting people to strengthen his own force of power? In that case, can we, the player faction, go and join the Evil King? He wanted to strengthen Evil King's faction. Then, I will give you an example of the benefits that players can receive if they join the Evil King. First of all, the greatest benefit was that the players would be able to leave the hidden dragon and develop outside. After all, they had the Evil King's protection. This benefit could also be extended to balance the forces of Yuanshu and the Evil King. The second point was the protracted war derived from the balance. For the players, I don't need to go into detail about the benefits of a protracted war, right? It was a great opportunity for development. The so-called protracted war was a war of attrition for other forces and a competition of resources. But for us players, it was a great opportunity for development. The longer the war, the more intense it was, the faster we would develop. The third point was that the players had an advantage, which was that they weren't afraid of death in battle. As the leader of a faction, the Evil King would definitely put them in an important position in the face of such conscientious forces that always rushed to the forefront. Moreover, he was a ghost emperor powerhouse and the incarnation of the ancient god's evil thoughts. He might have a lot of treasures hidden on him. He would definitely reward his subordinates who worked so hard. That would be an additional reward. The fourth point. Seeing Yin Xiaoqi's analysis and suggestion post, the players were completely convinced. Crayon_Shinchan. F*CK, asking the players to rely on the Evil King and use him to develop themselves. I'm really convinced. I can't think of any way to deal with you. Surprise emoji, Shueli_the_strongest. I'm totally convinced. After reading your analysis post, I think it can really be implemented. After all, the players won't lose anything and can even gain so many additional benefits. Tonghua gave a thumbs up emoji, Peppa_Boar. That's great. Using the Evil King's forces to develop and strengthen ourselves. That's awesome. Watermelon_Taro. The Evil King. This subordinate is really awesome. Every time they charge into battle, it's like they don't care about their lives. They even shout the Evil King is the strongest. I'm so pleased. I'll reward each of them with a set of purple equipment as encouragement. Laughing emoji, Crayon_Shinchan. Players, the Evil King is really awesome. Every time we fight, he allows us to farm experience and soul coins like crazy. He even rewards us with treasures. That's really gratifying. Next time, we'll charge even harder. Laughing emoji, Invincible_loneliness. The most fatal thing is that, if the players help the Evil King to kill Yin Xiaoqi, all the players will definitely rebel on the spot and kill the Evil King. I've even made up the script of Yin Xiaoqi is a domineering woman. What a suffocating operation. I'm impressed. Yin Xiaoqi's suggestion post was pushed to the top of the forum. People kept replying to it, and the scene was very lively. This suggestion could help the players get out of the predicament of being besieged on all sides. They could rely on their own advantages and use the Evil King's advantages to strengthen themselves. Players from both the European server and the original server generally gave it a good review and decided to implement Yin Xiaoqi's script. Land of Tsangshu, Spectral Dragon Tomb. At this time, in the central area of the Spectral Dragon Tomb, Yuanshu's figure was floating in the air. He looked at the chaotic windstorm from afar with a pale face. As the Aurora windstorm approached, Yuanshu slammed his palms forward several times. Suddenly, several transparent palm-shaped holes appeared outside the Aurora windstorm. However, they quickly recovered and the windstorm continued to wreak havoc, pushing forward. In the face of this situation, Yuanshu snorted coldly. A black beast appeared on the surface of his body. It then left his body and dashed forward, crashing into the Aurora windstorm. Boom! The beast was strangled to death by the wind. As a result, the wind weakened, and the windstorm began to fall into disorder and collapse. However, before long, the wind intensified again. All the disorder was repaired and the Aurora windstorm was formed again. Fortunately, the windstorm was affected by Yuanshu. It had changed its direction and was no longer blowing toward this area. Seeing the Aurora windstorm moving further away, Yuanxu's face turned cold. He had no idea what was going on recently. The natural disasters that were sealed in the ancient times had appeared on a large scale. Some of them were even suppressed and sealed by him when he was the king of his excellency. Such an abnormal situation gave Yuanxu a headache. It also greatly affected his plan to rule the land of Tsangshu. His figure slowly descended. The Ghost King and the Ghost Generals below immediately bowed respectfully when they saw him. "Have you checked it out? What's going on? Why are all these ancient seals destroyed?" Yuanxu looked at one of them coldly and asked. Chapter 245. Fenshui the Ghost King's expression turned serious. "Your Majesty, I've gone to a few sealed areas to investigate and found that all of them were destroyed. This means that it's not a coincidence, there's a mastermind behind all of this." Yuanxu's expression turned ugly when he heard this. He had only been released from the prison for a short while, and there was already someone behind the scenes trying to stop him. The first person that came to Yuanxu's mind was Tsangshu, the person who defeated him and took away his position as his excellency. However, Yuanxu shook his head in his heart, thinking that this idea was too unrealistic. Now that he knew how Tsangshu died, his soul had already entered limbo. How could he return? After all, Tsangshu was defying the heavens. If he didn't die, the gods in the heavenly realm wouldn't let him go. However, if it wasn't Tsangshu, Yuanxu couldn't figure out who would be trying to stop him behind the scenes. Hundreds of thousands of years had passed and his old enemies were all gone. His only biggest threat, Tsangshu, was already dead. He felt that it was impossible for him to have any enemies. After knowing the current situation of the land of Tsangshu, Yuanxu thought that the position of his excellency was already in the bag. "Your Majesty, I've also found out something. The evil thought of the evil demon god has been born." Fenshui the Ghost King spoke again. "What?" Yuanxu's expression froze when he heard this. The evil demon god was ranked in the top 100 on the underworld god list. His strength had reached the ancient god realm, and he was also the creator of this huge region. Therefore, Yuanxu had a bad feeling when he heard that his evil thought had been born. What is he doing now? He's recruiting and accumulating strength. His purpose is clear. Fenshui said worriedly. How dare a mere evil thought like him compete with me for the position of His Excellency? He's overestimating himself. Yuanxu said coldly. But Your Majesty, this evil thought was left behind by the evil demon god before he became a god. Its strength is at least at the Ghost Emperor level. What's more terrifying is that it's almost immortal. Otherwise, the first His Excellency wouldn't have chosen to seal it instead of destroying it completely. I'm afraid it won't be easy to deal with. Then seal it again. He'll regret it if he dares to go against me. Yuanxu's eyes flickered with a cold light as he strode toward the new His Excellency's palace that was being built. When the rest of the subordinates saw this, they looked at each other with worried expressions. They were willing to be loyal to Yuanxu not only because they were afraid of Yuanxu's powerful strength, but also because they wanted to develop under Yuanxu's leadership. However, everything seemed to have gone beyond their imagination. The process of unifying the land of Tsangshu, which was supposed to be in the bag, had now encountered so many variables. They didn't know what to do in this situation. After all, if the evil king really had the ability to build a force, then as Yuanxu's subordinates, they had no choice but to participate in the war. They were not afraid of war, but they felt that it was not worth it to risk their lives and subordinates' lives for Yuanxu to fight for the position of His Excellency without gaining any benefits. After all, people died in war. Even if it was a large clan, it was common for them to be destroyed in such a large-scale war. Land of Tsangshu, Hidden Dragon Zone. A Buddha statue flew over from afar and quickly landed in the Hidden Dragon Swamp village. Seeing this scene, the players immediately shouted in the regional channel, thinking that it was another natural disaster. At this time, the Buddha statue landed in the middle of the Hidden Dragon village, causing gravel and dust to fly everywhere. To the players' astonishment, a stream of light flashed across the petrified surface of the Buddha statue, and it suddenly became lifelike as if it had come to life. "Who is your lord?" At this time, the stone statue suddenly spoke. Its tone was filled with irrefutable majesty. Seeing that this person was so arrogant, the players were instantly displeased. Just as they were about to go forward and argue with him with their fists and legs, many players who had used the analysis tool suddenly shouted in the regional channel, "Don't be impulsive, calm down, this is the evil king. Brothers, calm down, we're on the same side, we're on the same side. This is our future sugar daddy, the big boss we're going to rely on, don't court death. Damn, the one with the sword, come back quickly, this is our future big boss, leave a good impression." Hearing the angry roar in the regional channel, the players who were about to argue stopped in their tracks. Then, they looked at the evil king with smiles on their faces, their expressions filled with many inexplicable meanings. Seeing this scene, the evil king was a little stunned. During this period of time, he had been to many regions. In the process of recruiting people to surrender, the first meeting was always a battle because no one would submit to him. At first, he thought that this place would also start with a battle, and the players had indeed done so, but why did they suddenly stop? At this time, Li Xing, Jason, and the other players who received the news rushed over, pushing through the crowd and came before the evil king. "I'm the Lord." Li Xing was the first to speak. After adopting Yin Xiaoqi's suggestion, the players of the European server also discussed and knew that there must be a person who could communicate with the evil king, someone similar to a clan leader. The strength of the Zero Guild was undoubtedly the strongest in the entire European server. Letting their guild leader, Li Xing, be the clan leader, was also what the players hoped for. Seeing that the leader representing this group of forces had appeared, the evil king's eyes flashed red. "Very well, now I'll give you two choices. Pledge your loyalty to me, or die." As he spoke, the evil king's domineering aura condensed and his aura rose. Just as he was about to radiate his aura to the surrounding players, Li Xing suddenly spoke. "We, the player clan, choose to surrender." Upon hearing this, the aura condensed on the evil king's body instantly dispersed. The evil king was not used to the fact that the players did not play by the rules. After all, they were a force that occupied a region, but the process of surrendering was too smooth. It was so smooth that the evil king had a feeling that he could not exert his strength. "All of you can call me the evil king. From now on, all of you are my subordinates, and my goal is to become the new king of the land of Tsangshu." The evil king spoke again after some thought. He originally thought that the players would be very surprised to hear his ambitious idea, and even resist it. After all, it was normal for the entire race to be destroyed in the process of taking the path of fighting for the position of king. After all, this was war. However, Li Xing nodded his head firmly and said, "My clan will definitely cooperate with the evil king to become the king. Aren't you guys afraid?" The evil king frowned. "No, none of us from the player clan are afraid of death. We are all very warlike. Our greatest honor is to die on the battlefield." Li Xing's answer made the evil king fall into silence. After coming into contact with Li Xing, the evil king initially thought that this was a cowardly clan with weak combat strength. After all, the few forces that went before him were all hot-tempered and unconvinced. If it wasn't for his powerful combat strength, he wouldn't have been able to subdue those forces. Therefore, Li Xing's quick agreement was seen as cowardice and spineless in the eyes of the evil king. However, after hearing Li Xing say that his clan was very warlike and unafraid of death, and that dying on the battlefield would be a form of honor, the evil king was disgusted by this. This caused evil king to feel a little disgusted, and his impression of the player clan declined once again. "This clan has no ability, but they are good at bragging." This was the evil king's first impression of the players. Chapter 246. Although his impression of the player clan had deteriorated, The evil king had nothing to say since they had pledged their loyalty to him. Very well. From now on, the player clan will be my subordinate force. Li Xing nodded in agreement and asked, "So, Lord Evil King, how do you think we should fight against Yuanxu at this stage?" When he heard this, Evil King did not answer. Instead, he looked at Li Xing in surprise. The player clan and Yuanxu used to have a grudge? The Evil King felt that Li Xing's suggestion on how to fight against Yuanxu was unusual. After all, Yuanxu's strength was not a secret. Shouldn't he be afraid of such a strong opponent? However, the Evil King could not understand why Li Xing was still thinking about how to fight against Yuanxu. "Yes, Lord Evil King. Our clan used to have a deep grudge against Yuanxu." Yin Xiaoqi's script was very comprehensive, including how the players should behave in front of the Evil King and their background settings. Therefore, the Evil King nodded in realization after hearing Li Xing's explanation. The Evil King felt a little relieved after understanding the irreconcilable hatred between the player clan and Yuanxu. At least this could improve the player clan's combat power in the future against Yuanxu's army. The Evil King nodded after hearing Li Xing's explanation. "As for how to deal with Yuanxu, this is what I'm thinking. At this stage, the northwest is the main territory of Yuanxu's force. Therefore, we should use the area where they have relatively weak control as our main development area. At this stage, the Hidden Dragon Zone where you are, the ruins in the west, and the Hidden Fog Forest, a total of 7 forces have pledged their loyalty to me. We will use this area as our base camp and develop from there." Li Xing could not help but nod after hearing the Evil King's plan. The battle plan that the Evil King proposed was completely feasible to Li Xing. In the subsequent discussion with the Evil King, Li Xing did not just listen. Other than asking his own doubts, he began to propose a set of defensive and counterattack strategies according to Yin Xiaoqi's plan. Yin Xiaoqi's suggestion in the forum was for the Evil King to give up the surrounding areas like the Hidden Fog Forest and gather all the forces that he had conquered in the Hidden Dragon Zone and the ruins. At this stage, the Evil King's force was on the weaker side. Blindly expanding their territory would be an unwise move, so they gave up on the excess territory and hold up. They would first consolidate their strength. After all, with less territory, it would be easier for them to defend. Then, they would consider expanding their territory after they had stabilized their power. Li Xing's suggestions surprised Diablo. Then, he began to think about the feasibility of this method. He was formed from evil thoughts, so he was not afraid of death. However, his forces would definitely not be able to survive in the early stages. Therefore, after careful consideration, the Evil King felt that it was the best choice to hide and defend. This time, Evil King's attitude toward Li Xing changed. "Very well, I accept your suggestion. I'll inform them to evacuate their territories and move the Hidden Dragon Ruins and Hidden Dragon Ruins here. As for your player clan, just wait for my orders. This battle will come sooner or later." Li Xing nodded his head respectfully. In fact, he was overjoyed in his heart and admired Yin Xiaoqi even more. It could be said that from the moment the Evil King took the initiative to seek her out to the moment the Evil King accepted her suggestion, Yin Xiaoqi had accurately predicted everything. Everything was progressing steadily according to her script. What they needed to do next was to show off the player's power to increase the importance of the Evil King's heart and prepare for the next step of the scenario. Land of Tsangshu, Death Garden Forbidden Area. Behind the towering statue of the evil demon god, weeds grew everywhere, and all kinds of colorful poisonous plants grew there. The air was filled with a sweet poisonous aura, and the vines of the plants inside danced like spirit snakes, looking very frightening. This area was called a forbidden area because it used to be the location of the spiritual garden of the evil demon god, the creator of the land of Tsangshu. It was filled with all kinds of demonic plants and danger lurked everywhere. At this moment, he was walking in this area, searching for the next seal through live streaming. During this period of time, as he continuously released natural disasters, his popularity among the players increased rapidly. He enjoyed the feeling of being valued. Therefore, he put in more effort in digging the seals. Other than helping the European server players solve their predicament, he also gained a lot of rewards while digging the seals. He had already obtained the remains of 2 early-stage Ghost Kings. Although his business ability was getting stronger, he was still a little scared after coming to the Death Garden. This was because the plants here were too terrifying. Plants with the combat power of Ghost Supreme Commander were everywhere. He even suspected that there were demonic plants of Ghost King level. With Hui's power, even with Cha Na's zombie spirit, early-stage Ghost Supreme Commander, that had been strengthened many times, he could barely enter. He could only run away when encountering powerful plants. However, the compass's index had reached its peak. Although it was dangerous, he had no intention of leaving. After moving forward for a while, the compass began to shake. He looked down at the ground under his feet and did not find anything special. However, the compass could not be wrong. Therefore, he began to instruct Cha Na's zombie spirit to dig with all his might. After about 10 minutes of digging, a huge deep pit appeared. At this moment, he waved his hand to stop Cha Na's zombie spirit from digging and jumped into the deep pit. It was not that he did not want to dig anymore, but Cha Na's zombie spirit could not dig any further. The layer of soil below could not be broken by a shovel. In order to find out the reason, he peeled away the soil layer bit by bit. Suddenly, he found a huge black stone slab. Looking at the chipped shovel in Cha Na's zombie spirit's hand, he was surprised by the hardness of the stone slab. Driven by curiosity, he began to instruct Cha Na's zombie spirit to dig from the side while he cleaned the soil embedded in the patterns of the stone slab. After some effort, the full appearance of the stone slab was gradually revealed. It was a pure black stone slab. It was covered with mottled red spots that looked like bloodstains. There were also many strange words carved on it. In the middle of the slab, there was a black sunken palm print. He stood up and began to observe the stone slab. The twisted words on it began to distort under the analysis of the artifact. Kill, 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 kill. This is my tombstone. From now on, my killing will not stop until I kill the great emperor. There were originally more words on the tombstone. However, due to the existence of the black palm print, some of the words were destroyed. Only a few broken words could be seen. I killed, destroy. Come back, one day destroy the world. Extraterrestrial, looking at the parsed words, he was stunned. He did not understand the meaning of the great emperor, so he could not understand it at all. He only felt that the person who wrote these words was murderous. The players in the live streaming channel were also confused. They could not understand the meaning of the tombstone at all. Then, they began to guess the hidden content based on the existing word. However, the silly netizens were much happier. Their guesses were gradually distorted and turned into various funny statements. Just as he was about to continue studying the tombstone, a shadow loomed over his head. He immediately raised his head and saw an unusually large bird beast that looked like an eagle floating in the sky. Its sharp eyes were staring at him. It's you. Seeing who was examining the tombstone, Fenshui the Ghost King flapped his wings. A strong wind suddenly rose from the ground and swept Hui up into the sky. Chapter 247. Due to the frequent natural disasters during this period of time, Fenshui the Ghost King, who was appointed by Yuanxiu to investigate this matter, was really distressed. Apart from knowing that the seal was destroyed by someone, he did not find any useful clues and could not report back to Yuanxiu. Therefore, Fenshui the Ghost King simply gave up on the search and chose to wait for the guy who dug the seal to come. The area he originally chose was the original palace of His Excellency Zhangshu. This was because there was an endless dark sealed prison beneath the palace of the prefect. Many prisoners who were once enemies of the prefect were imprisoned in it, and Sangshu was once personally stationed there. However, after waiting for a few days, he did not see Hu He at all. Then, he suddenly realized that the most terrifying seal in the land of Sangshu was definitely the area of the Death Garden. It was said that the body of the evil demon god was buried in this area. Of course, he was not sure whether this legend was true or not. He could not even verify whether the evil demon god was dead or not. However, if everything was true and the body of the evil demon god was dug out, it would cause a terrible disaster. He was terrified just thinking about it. Thinking of this, he quickly headed towards the Death Garden and coincidentally saw Hu He who was digging out the seal. Finally, he found the culprit. Feng Shui's eyes flashed with a sharp cold light, but he did not kill Hu He immediately. Instead, he grabbed Hu He and prepared to bring him back to report back. However, at this moment, Feng Shui suddenly realized that there seemed to be something in the hole that was dug out. Apart from the zombie spirit of Cha Na, a huge black tombstone came into view. He could not understand the ancient divine text, but the black palm print on it scared him. This was the aura of a god. Turning his head to look at Hu He who was struggling in his hand, Feng Shui the Ghost King's heart trembled. That was close, that was close. Could the evil demon god that had disappeared really be sleeping underneath? At this moment, Feng Shui the Ghost King felt like strangling Hu He to death. According to the legend, the evil demon god was bloodthirsty. The reason why the Death Garden that he was in could grow so many demonic plants was because the evil demon god watered the land with the blood of various creatures, and it was full of demonic nature. The authenticity of these legends could not be verified. However, the recent emergence of the Shebi zombie clan had confirmed the legend of the evil demon god casting a soul-destroying curse. If the evil devil god was really dug out, then Yuanshu, the evil king, and the various natural disasters would be nothing. They would not even be able to fight for the position of His Excellency. Feng Shui thought to himself. "Pa!" Feng Shui the Ghost King slapped Hu He across the face, catching him off guard and causing his head to tilt backward. "What the F*** CK Big Bird, you hit me, Pa! You're amazing. Just you wait. After I, Drought Demon, refine you, I'll pluck out all your, Pa! After venting for a while, Feng Shui flapped its wings and buried the area that might have been a sealed area. Then, it spread its wings and flew away with Hu He. At that moment, Hu He's nose was bleeding profusely. He didn't even dare to say anything as his face was lifeless. In the live stream, Crayon_Shinchan, Motherf**Ker Demon King, remember this. We'll help you find out where his ancestral grave is. If he hits you, you'll dig him up and curse him for 18 generations. No, 100 generations. Surely the strongest. What a pity. It seemed like he was about to dig something out but was captured by Yuanshu's subordinate, the Ghost King. I feel sorry for the Demon King for half a second, laughing emoji. Watermelon_Taro. The wind is howling and the water is cold, the Demon King will never return, laughing emoji, Assassin's Creed. It's a pity to see the great Demon King being captured, but why does it feel so good? We don't have any deep hatred, laughing emoji. A big wolf dog, look! The great Demon King is flying. What is that flowing blood-red thread? I'm curious, laughing emoji. Crayon_Shinchan replied to A_large_wolf dog. Look, isn't this a dog? Pat the dog's head 3 times, laughing emoji. Seeing that Hu He had failed to excavate the seal, the players did not feel regretful. Instead, they wanted to see how Hu He would be dealt with. There were even players in the livestream room who had opened bets, giving other players a few options with different ratios for them to place their bet. Seeing this, Hu He suddenly felt a little sad. Is your happiness built on the pain of others? Are you still human? The wind howled in his ears, and the blood from his nose was blown into beads of blood by the wind, splashing onto his face. Hu He felt bitter. After about an hour or so, Feng the Ghost King slowed down and began to descend. At this moment, the name of the place on the map appeared. Mysterious Dragon Tomb. At this moment, Feng the Ghost King suddenly swooped down. After gliding at a low altitude for some distance, he suddenly let go of Hu He, allowing him to free fall and hit the ground hard. After flapping his wings to stabilize his body, Feng landed steadily. Then, he spoke to Yuanxu, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground in front of him. "My king, this is the person who is destroying the seal." Hearing this, Hu He crawled up from the ground with a grimace. When he raised his head, he realized that it was an old acquaintance. "I guess that it might be you, and it's just as I expected. Tell me, what's your purpose in doing this?" Seeing Hu He, Yuanxu was not surprised at all. After all, he was also dug out by Hu He. However, he did not understand why Hu He would do this. This was an arduous and unrewarding task. There were many sealed lands in the land of Tsangshu that were full of danger, and one could lose his life if he was not careful. However, Hu He was also his savior, so Yuanxu did not choose to search his soul directly. Instead, he asked, If I said that I was digging for fun, would you believe me?" Hu He whispered. "Looks like you have secrets." Yuanxu, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, reached out his hand and pulled Hu He to his side. "I'll give you one last chance. Tell me the truth. If there's anything in your words that I don't think is true, I'll search your soul myself," Yuanxu said calmly. Hearing this, Hu He was so angry that he laughed. "You're making me look like I'm scared. If you want to talk about death, I'm at least one of the top few deaths in this game. How could I be scared by you? I was just digging for fun. If you don't believe me, search my soul yourself." Since he knew that he might not be able to leave this place alive, Hu He slapped his thigh and looked like he was ready to risk everything. Yuanxu slowly turned his head and stared at Hu He. He could not help but frown. "I realize that you're not afraid of me at all. What's wrong? We both have one head, 2 arms, and 2 legs. Do you have wings? Why should I be afraid of you?" Hu He did not lose in his imposing manner. However, Feng the Ghost King could not help but glare at Hu He. "I'm the only one with wings here. Since you're not afraid of death, are you afraid of loneliness?" Yuanxu's face turned cold when faced with the fearless Hu He. "What do you mean?" Hu He was stunned. "The seal of eternity? Don't you like to dig out seals? Then I'll seal you and let you suffer in the darkness." Without waiting for Hu He's reply, Yuanxu turned his head and looked at Feng the Ghost King. "Feng bring him to the endless darkness and seal him. Bring him back after 1,000 years." Upon hearing this, Feng Shui's face revealed a sinister smile. Then, he flapped his wings and grabbed Hu He in his hand. Then, he quickly flew towards the direction of the original His Excellency's palace. In the underworld, the greatest pain was never death, but the endless seal. Even the gods would go crazy from the pain of suffering alone in the long years. In the land of Tsangshu, there was such a sealed place used for imprisonment. It was the underground of the original His Excellency's palace. This seal was personally built by Tsangshu tens of thousands of years after he became His Excellency. Its purpose was to suppress all forces that dared to go against him. In this prison, the soul's perception of the flow of time was completely different from the outside world. An hour in the outside world was equivalent to 1,000 years in the endless darkness. Moreover, there was no food or spiritual energy in the prison. One could not even cast spells. Even the strength of one's physical body would be sealed. Even death would be an extravagant hope. It was truly a land of darkness. It was also because of the existence of this seal that Tsangshu's position was extremely stable during his reign. No one dared to rebel because no one wanted to spend the rest of their life in the darkness. That was a torture worse than death. Chapter 248. Land of Tsangshu, the former His Excellency's palace. A huge shadow streaked past from afar, heading towards them. Flying at high speed, the strong wind whistled past Hu He's ears, making it hard for him to open his eyes. Everything around him was a blur. When they arrived above the former His Excellency's palace, Feng the Ghost King suddenly descended and took Hu-He for a high-altitude bungee jump. The Tsangshu His Excellency's palace was already in ruins. All the resources inside had been divided by the lords of various regions, making it look like a wasteland. When they were about to reach the ground, Feng Shui's body began to shrink. He grabbed Hu-He and flew into the His Excellency's palace, arriving at a corner of the hall. Looking at the stubborn Hu-He, Feng Shui flapped his wings violently. Suddenly, the ground cracked open, revealing a pitch-black hole. "Big Bird, what are you doing?" Hu-He asked cautiously as he stared at the pitch-black hole. "Aren't you not afraid of death? Then we'll meet again in 1,000 years." Feng Shui sneered, then kicked Hu-He into the black hole. After entering the seal, darkness instantly enveloped him. However, Hu-He was calm. To him, being sealed for 1,000 years could be solved by committing suicide. Otherwise, being sealed would be equivalent to being sealed. He believed that battle online would not have such an obvious bug. Therefore, Hu-He began to observe his surroundings without any worries. As the surroundings were pitch black and very quiet, Hu-He took out a searchlight from the channel to check out the situation. A beam of light shot out and swept across the surroundings. However, what happened next surprised Hu-He. The searchlight had only shot out a distance of 3 meters before it began to shorten rapidly. It was as if there was a monster in the darkness devouring the light bit by bit until the surroundings were plunged into darkness again. Hu-He had no choice but to put away the searchlight and shouted, "Is anyone there?" However, as soon as his voice came out of his throat, it dissipated instantly. Even Hu-He himself could not hear his own shout. Unable to see or hear, Hu-He suddenly panicked in such an environment. After all, everything in the game was too realistic. Under this state of shielding his senses, fear grew in Hu-He's heart. Hu-He, who had originally planned to explore the seal, suddenly gave up. He took out his shovel and was ready to end himself so that he could return to the safe zone and start all over again. After shielding himself from the pain, he began to mutilate himself. However, what happened next made Hu-He feel a little terrified. This was because every time the shovel in his hand collided with his body, an invisible darkness would envelop the injured area and cancel out the force. After trying a series of methods, such as smashing the head and slitting the neck, Hu-He was completely dumbfounded. "I can't die here." This scared Hu-He to death. If he couldn't return after dying, wouldn't that mean that he would have to stay here for 1,000 years? "I can't even live for 1,000 years. Am I supposed to let my descendants inherit this name?" Realizing that something was amiss, Hu-He quickly chose to quit the game. Fortunately, he was not in combat mode this time, so he easily exited the sealed world. After returning to reality, Hu-He entered the game again with a glimmer of anticipation in his heart. Darkness, it was still endless darkness. Withdraw. He entered again. The black world enveloped him once more. What the F***ck, did I really get banned? After a few attempts, Hu-He had a mental breakdown. He curled up in the dark, feeling wronged like a child. When the players in the live streaming channel saw that Hu-He had been banned, it became lively. Watermelon_Taro. "Look, he's been banned for 1,000 years. I think this name can be inherited by his descendants after 1,000 years." After saying that, he tilted his head and kicked his legs. Laughing emoji. Shueli _ the strongest replied to Crayon_Shinchan. "Ha ha ha. How could you do such a sad thing? Ha. Peppa_Boar. 1,000 years later, Hu-He's descendants will log into the account, raise their shovels, and shout to the world that I am the great demon king of the new world. Bow down to me, stupid players." Laughing emoji. Cheated_8000 replied to Peppa_Boar. Then, he will be thrown into the endless darkness by the players of the new world and continue to be banned for 1,000 years. Laughing emoji. Roasted_Jade_Rabbit_Hugging_Chung. Idiotic netizens, a bunch of idiots, ha ha ha. Captain_Dragonfly. Ha ha ha, the thing we've been looking forward to has actually come at this time. How sad. Great Demon King, hold back your sorrow and face your new life with a smile. I recommend you to play Tetris, laughing emoji. Seeing the player's replies, his heart ached even more. He felt so wrong that he wanted to cry. However, in this area, not even tears could be shed. However, jokes were just jokes. After a while, the players began to organize their men and prepare to rescue the Great Demon King. Although the Great Demon King had done a lot of wrong in the past, he had done his best for the players of the land of Tsangshu. His efforts were witnessed by everyone. After the jokes, they gathered spontaneously and prepared to head to the original palace of His Excellency, Tsangshu, to rescue him. Seeing that the players were coming to rescue him, he finally perked up. That's right. Go to the forum and report the bug to the officials. Let them deal with it. He suddenly thought of a way to save himself. Thinking of this, he tried to open the forum. Fortunately, no matter the environment, the game's interface could be summoned. This made he feel more at ease. Then, he logged into the forum and prepared to post a request for help so that the players could pin it. If it was in the past, he would definitely believe that the players would try their best to make the post disappear. After all, it was every player's dream to be banned. However, it was different now. He was the savior, the light of hope for the players of the European server. After typing the title and content, he was about to click send when he suddenly saw a ray of light above him. Then, a force lifted him up into the sky. Ha ha, 1,000 years have passed. How is it? Are you afraid? He was speechless. Looking at the smug face of Finshui, he glanced at the time marker at the bottom left corner of the interface. He was dumbfounded when he realized that it had only been an hour. Lu Wu had been paying attention to his encounter. However, he was not the least bit worried about he being sealed. After he was sealed, he personally went to Tsangshu. After asking, he found out that the endless darkness that he had set up was not something as terrifying as controlling the flow of time. With his strength, he could not create a seal that could control the flow of time. In fact, the inside of the endless darkness and the outside world were unified. The difference was that in this seal, the perception of the soul would be confused by the formation that Tsangshu had set up, causing an error in the perception of time. An hour inside was equivalent to 1,000 years in the outside world. After all, the power to change the time of two regions was difficult even for a Een god to control. It was the power of the supreme law of time. How could a ghost emperor like him master it? Therefore, after knowing all this, Lu Wu was not worried that he would be in trouble. This was because his soul was protected by the artifact. The trick of confusing the soul's perception of time might work on others, but it had no effect on a player like he. Moreover, even if he was really sealed for 1,000 years, Lu Wu could take the initiative to recall him back into the artifact. In other words, he had nothing to worry about. Of course, he was not aware of all this. That was why he was scared. Sure enough, you've been scared, silly. Kid, weren't you not afraid of death back then? How do you feel now? Tell me. Finshui the Ghost King looked at who was in a daze. He was speechless. Actually, I feel okay. Chapter 249. Upon hearing this, Finshui the Ghost King was dumbfounded. Have you really been tortured to the point of insanity? Looking at the calm Finshui the Ghost King could not remain calm anymore. In fact, he understood why Yuenshu wanted to seal Yuenshu not only wanted to know the purpose of digging the seals everywhere, but he also saw his potential and wanted to subdue him. The reason why he sealed him was to suppress and make him fear him. After all, he was not afraid of death. If went crazy, it would be hard for him to explain to Yuenshu. I'm not crazy, you're the crazy one. Looking at Finshui, he could not help but complain. At this moment, Hu He was not flustered at all. First of all, he had the support of the army of players who could come to his rescue at any time. At the same time, he was even less afraid after understanding that the time of the seal in the endless darkness was actually equivalent to 1 hour. I knew it. How could a game like Battle Online have such a huge bug? At this moment, Hu He could not help but think happily. Looking at Fenshui the Ghost King, Hu He had already realized his importance. At the same time, the desire to explore the seal rose in his heart again, so he asked in a low voice, "Should I extend it for another 1,000 years?" Fenshui the Ghost King was speechless. Looking at the dumbfounded Fenshui, Hu He spoke again. "You asked me how I felt? I didn't feel it clearly just now. Should I do it again?" Looking at the unusually calm Hu He, Fenshui the Ghost King suddenly felt a little angry. According to what he thought, Hu He should be crying bitterly after being released, kneeling on the ground and begging bitterly. Why the F***ck did he provoke him? After staring coldly at Hu He for a while, Fenshui the Ghost King had a guess in his heart. This guy is pretending, but in fact, he must be very afraid. He did not believe that Hu He was completely fine. After all, he had seen a few guys released from the endless darkness. Those guys' first thought was to beg, without any psychological defense. As long as they did not return to the endless darkness, they were willing to die, not to mention pledge their loyalty. Thinking of this, Fenshui the Ghost King grinned hideously. "Seems like the time is too short. I hope you can still be so tough the next time I see you." As he spoke, he kicked Hu He into the endless darkness once again. The interior of the endless darkness was made up of cells that were shaped like grids. Other than the situation inside that could be controlled from the outside, the existence of other prisoners could not be observed from the inside. He was not worried that Hu He would do anything shocking. Moreover, he had checked Hu He and found no tools on him. Entering the endless darkness once again, Hu He was extremely calm this time. First, he opened the interface and played the music. After all, the music came from a divine artifact and was directly transmitted to his hearing. Even the endless darkness could not block it. Then, he opened the forum and read the posts one by one. Finally, he turned on the livestream and watched the idiotic netizens playing tricks outside. After a series of actions, the light outside reappeared and Hu He was sucked out. "How do you feel?" Hu He nodded with a serious expression. "I feel something this time." Fenshui the Ghost King was infuriated. He kicked Hu He into the endless darkness again. He did not believe that Hu Ning would be able to hold on forever. However, at this moment, in the endless darkness, Hu He's body twisted and swayed as he danced to the music. Anyway, no one could see them here, so they could party as much as they wanted. An hour later, Hu He, who had returned to the ground, did not even manage to stand firm for a few seconds before he was kicked back into the darkness by the angry Fenshui. This time, Fenshui the Ghost King was completely enraged. He planned to seal Hu He for 10,000 years. He did not believe that this kid would not be afraid. Returning to the endless darkness, Hu He listened to the music, read the posts, and watched the live stream. When he realized that Fenshui the Ghost King had not released him, he went offline to make a cup of coffee. After drinking it contentedly, he returned to the game. This time, he planned to explore the endless darkness. The area he was in was actually not large, only about 20 square meters. At the end of it was a soft, touchable seal wall. Hu He tried to push it, but found that the seal wall was very tough. With his strength, he could not break it at all. However, this also aroused Hu He's strong desire to break the seal. Although he was not strong enough, he still had the shop and tools. Therefore, Hu He began to look for tools to break the seal in the shop. Recently, Jason, a player from the Zero Guild in the European server, had supported him with some funds to break the seal. Therefore, he was not afraid of wasting soul coins. He tried tools such as electric drills and demon-breaking knife. If it was not for the fact that the shop did not have excavators, he would have bought one and tried it. Unfortunately, these tools seemed to be completely ineffective against the seal wall. He could not break it at all. However, he was not discouraged. He continued to search in the special column of the shop. There were many special items there. He felt that he might find an unexpected surprise. After searching for a while, he really found something good. Anti-seal canceller tool. Item details. A product created by an unknown R&D expert in the early days of seal research. It can cancel out the power of most seals. Note: this tool is a one-time use item. Item price: 400 soul coins. Looking at the price, he suddenly hesitated. He touched the seal wall, but his heart was restless again. After thinking for a while, he clenched his teeth and bought one. The anti-seal canceller, which was shaped like a doorknob, suddenly appeared. Filled with anticipation, he pressed the tool on the air wall. At this moment, the seal wall rapidly rippled. It felt hard to the touch, and was no longer as soft as before. About a minute later, with a pop sound, the anti-seal canceller in Huhi's hand suddenly shattered. He had already seen the effect, but the tool was broken. This undoubtedly made Huhi's teeth hurt. However, since he had already started, it was not his style to give up halfway. Hence, he bought another one. Just like that, after using up 3 anti-seal nullifiers, the seal wall suddenly cracked. Seeing that he had successfully broken the seal, Hui clenched his fist in excitement and then walked in. The inside of the seal wall was still pitch black. Hui began to search around aimlessly. Pop! As he walked, Hui suddenly felt something under his feet. He immediately tripped and fell to the ground. He quickly stood up and subconsciously took a step back. However, this space was shrouded in darkness. He could not see what was under his feet at all. Hence, he gathered his courage and bent down to touch it. Slippery and very soft? However, the creature under his feet did not react at all, as if it was dead. Unable to feel what creature it was, he was a little depressed. He felt that he could not communicate with it at all. Hence, he began to search the shop again. After a while, he found another good item. Soul communication rope. Item details. A soul conductor tool created by an unknown research expert. It is used to communicate with spirit-type creatures, such as ghosts and evil spirits. Usage. All creatures, spirits, that come into contact with the soul communication rope will be able to communicate. Note: most spirits have no consciousness and cannot be communicated with. There is no refund after purchase. Item price: 500 soul coins. The price made Hui's balls hurt again, but he still bought it reluctantly. Then, he followed the instructions and placed one end of the rope on the creature lying on the ground. After connecting, Hui began to make a call at a close distance. Hey, brother, can you hear me? Chapter 250. After trying to shout a few times, Hui realized that the creature lying on the ground did not respond at all. This made Hui a little angry. He did not expect the shop to sell fake goods, especially the little research and development expert that was written on the description. This was too much. How could they make fake goods? Did they have any professional ethics? A little lowly in the outside world sensed Hui's thoughts and immediately cast a faint glance at him, causing Hui to shiver subconsciously. Just when Hui thought that there was no way to communicate, a stuttering voice suddenly appeared in his mind. Who are you? Where are? Let me out. I'll promise you anything. Hearing the sudden reply, Hui was stunned for a moment before he was pleasantly surprised. Hey, brother, tell me who you are first. I am. While Hui was waiting, this guy suddenly stopped talking. Who are you? Hui asked again. I forgot. Hui was speechless. Oh, I seem to be the resentful heart. Ghost King. I think so, the voice said with uncertainty. This made Hui completely speechless. However, seeing that this guy was still breathing, Hui suddenly had a bold idea. Now that Fenshui the Ghost King was above, with his own strength, he would definitely not be able to defeat or escape. However, with the help of this Ghost King, there might be some hope. This made Hu He think again. One more person means one more force. He might as well find more fighters. However, he definitely could not afford to use up the soul coins he had now, so he needed external support. Therefore, Hu He opened his friends list and found his biggest financial backer at the moment, Jason. After starting the communication, Hu He explained his current situation and expressed his hope to get his soul coins support. Hu He was undoubtedly a great help to the European server at this stage. Without saying anything, Jason transferred him 20,000 soul coins. This made Hu He feel touched. He felt that he was a decent person and was being valued. With 20,000 soul coins, Hu He was suddenly full of confidence. After taking away the soul communication rope, he began to look for the seal wall in this room and bought an anti-seal canceller to crack it. After spending 3 hours, Hu He had deciphered more than 10 rooms. Apart from 2 empty rooms, he had found a total of 13 people with unknown abilities. Since he couldn't see them from here, he couldn't use his analysis ability. Moreover, all of these guys had their powers sealed and couldn't use them at all. Therefore, Hu He couldn't determine their strength. However, Hu He was still very happy. At least their team's strength had increased. However, there was one thing that gave Hu He a headache. These fellows did not even know what their names were. 4 of them said that they might be called the Resentful Heart Ghost King, 3 of them said that they were called the Empty Ghost General, and one of them even said that he was called Sangshu, and he seemed to be an abyssal prefect. This made Hu He feel like he had saved a bunch of retards. However, he had no choice. If he wanted to escape, he would have to rely on the strength of these people. After digging a few more seal walls, Hu He brought all of them back to their original rooms. He made them hold onto the soul communication rope one by one and started communicating. After that, the conversation with them made Hu He feel mentally and physically exhausted. Every one of them stuttered when they spoke and looked like they were about to die. Due to the protection of the dark force, although they couldn't die, they were in fact no different from being dead. They were already lost in the passage of time, and their perception of the outside world had become very vague. However, even if it was troublesome to communicate, they still had to communicate. Hu He began to explain the reason for digging them out. At the same time, he told them that they could leave immediately and asked them to hold on. There was also a very important point that Hu He did not forget. He hoped that they would give Fenshui the Ghost King a good beating when they got out. After all, Hu He had never forgotten the hatred of being slapped in the face back then. After explaining in detail a few times, Hu He let out a sigh of relief when he saw that the 20 or so people agreed in a silly manner. Then, he laid on the ground, opened the forum, and started to post and watch the live broadcast. Sigh, it's so awesome for us players to have Wi-Fi. If it weren't for my heavy responsibility in the so-called endless darkness, I would have stayed at home for a year. At this moment, Hu He's heart was filled with happiness. He had completely forgotten how he looked like when he was curled up in a corner and crying silently. Time passed by slowly. The rest of the creatures became slightly more energetic during the interaction. They were no longer as dull as before, and they also remembered some things. This made Hu He very happy. While watching the live broadcast, he would interject from time to time and exchange a few words, as if he was the leader. In the outside world, Fenshui the Ghost King seemed a little annoyed. These 10 hours of boring waiting had also worn down a lot of his patience. However, since he had promised to wait for 10,000 years, he would wait for 10,000 years. He had to let Hu He experience the true meaning of terror and helplessness. When he felt that it was about time, Fenshui the Ghost King opened the seal of the endless darkness with anticipation. Then, he extended his hand and sucked downward. However, he was immediately dumbfounded. One figure after another emerged from below. Including Hu He, there were more than 20 figures. Their faces were dull, especially when they saw the sunlight. They subconsciously covered their eyes with their hands, as if they were not used to it. Suddenly, a spiritual energy storm blew around them. A large amount of spiritual energy began to gather here, pouring into the bodies of these creatures that had just walked out of the seal. Looking at who was smiling at him proudly, Fenshui the Ghost King, who then swept his gaze across the other figures, felt his heart skip a beat. At this time, Fenshui the Ghost King was horrified to find that he knew many of these figures. There were even a few that Sangshu had ordered him to throw down personally. He did not know how he did it. After all, no power could be used in the endless darkness. Moreover, he was sure that he did not have any tools on him. However, he knew one thing now, and that was that it was bad. These fellows who were thrown into the endless darkness were stubborn and did not submit to anyone. Moreover, they were powerful beings. Now that they had come out, they would definitely turn the land of Tsangshu upside down. As spiritual energy continued to flow into their bodies, their numb souls began to gradually recover, and their memories began to flow back bit by bit. Although they could not recover to their peak state in a short period of time, they had already somewhat understood what was going on with them. "Brothers! Beat him up!" At this time, he waved his hand and shouted at Fenshui the Ghost King proudly. Upon hearing this, Fenshui the Ghost King immediately flapped his wings and tried to escape. With a glance, he estimated that there were at least 8 Ghost Kings here. Although they had not recovered their strength, if they were to really fight, he would definitely not be able to handle them. However, as soon as his figure flew into the air, he saw several figures approaching him and pressing him to the ground together. In fact, he did not know that, in the endless darkness, his appearance had left a very clear mark in their hearts. Perhaps to it was just a few short hours, but to them they had spent a long time together. During that period of time, he was indeed their leader. He brought them light and hope, allowing them to no longer be lost in the flow of time. After these vicious fellows regained consciousness, they were subconsciously full of respect for he. Chapter 251. At that moment, in the eyes of these prisoners, he was their pillar of support in the endless darkness. Although they had not fully recovered their sanity, they did not hesitate to execute his orders. Scram! The terrified Fenshui the Ghost King frantically flapped his wings, trying to shake off the prisoners that were entangled around him. There were a total of 23 people, and every one of them was an expert who had left a glorious record in the history of the land of Tsangshu. Even Fenshui the Ghost King could not resist their combined strength. He was dragged down from the air bit by bit and finally pinned to the ground by their combined strength. Looking at Fenshui the Ghost King, who was struggling on the ground, he could not help but laugh. This time, he held the initiative. "My king won't let you off," Fenshui roared as he stared at he. At this time, in the live streaming channel, the players who saw this scene had already begun to discuss and began to suggest how to deal with this Fenshui the Ghost King. Watermelon_Taro. Great Demon King, kill him. I'll be rich after killing you. This guy is very valuable and can level up many times. Crayon_Shinchan. No, I think we should lock him up for 1,000 years and let him feel despair and fear. Laughing emoji. Surely_the_strongest. Revenge never waits overnight. I remember you said that you wanted to pluck off all his fur. Roasting Jade Rabbit with Chong E in my arms. Slurp, this Demon King should be delicious. Expectant eyes. JPG. Peppa Boar. Successfully counterattacked. The Great Demon King has counterattacked. Laughing emoji. Seeing the player's suggestion, he felt that it made sense. Hence, he pointed at Fenshui the Ghost King and said, "Pluck off his fur and throw him into the endless darkness. Lock him up for 1,000 years before killing him." When the prisoners heard this, their eyes flashed with a murderous glint. They pressed down on Fenshui the Ghost King and began to pluck his hair. As the feathers on his body dwindled, Fenshui the Ghost King began to wail in agony. He glared at he with eyes that were about to pop out of their socket. His heart was filled with rage, but there was nothing he could do. With the help of the prisoners, who he was no longer an existence whose life and death he could easily control. A moment later, Feng the Ghost King, who had lost all hope, turned into a bald eagle. He was then carried by the prisoners and thrown into the endless darkness. Hui's heart was filled with the thrill of revenge. How they treated him, he would return it in the same way. Now that he had such a group of powerful fighters, he felt that he was about to reach the peak of his life. When he thought of Hitorigami, who was still stored in his own space, he could not help but complain. To hell with Hanba! An hour later, Feng the Ghost King was pulled out of the endless darkness. At this time, Feng the Ghost King's eyes were dull, his face revealed some vicissitudes, and his eyes were filled with fear of the darkness. Looking at the comments in the live streaming channel, he asked the question that all the players wanted to know the answer to. Come, tell me, how do you feel? Plop. Feng the Ghost King knelt on the ground in horror. No. I don't want to go in again. Looks like you haven't had enough time to comprehend anything. He returned Feng the Ghost King's words to him. Then, he waved his hand at the prisoners. Feng the Ghost King was once again thrown into the endless darkness. Looking at the players' discussions, he couldn't help but grin. The plot had been reversed, and the current Feng the Ghost King was him from back then. However, compared to him, there was no Wi-Fi inside, so he must be very unhappy. When he felt that it was about time, he was about to signal the prisoners to fish Feng the Ghost King out. This time, he didn't want to play anymore. He planned to kill him and refine his corpse into a zombie spirit. However, at this time, a strong pressure came from above. The prisoners around he subconsciously tensed their bodies and instinctively got into a fighting stance. That's incredible. How did you do it? I'm getting more and more curious about you, Seal Breaker. As the voice fell, a figure came from afar. With every step, the figure moved forward like a phantom. In the blink of an eye, it appeared not far from Hui. I have high hopes for you. Are you interested in working for me? Yuanxu smiled happily. He didn't even mention his subordinate, Feng the Ghost King, who was loyal to him. Yuanxu, I'll return Feng the Ghost King to you. Let us go. He was a little nervous. Although he wasn't afraid of death, these 23 prisoners didn't have the ability to resurrect like him. At this time, they were like children who had just been enlightened and were full of attachment to him. He couldn't bear to leave them behind. I won't accept any negotiation. I only want an answer as to whether you're willing to serve me. Looking at the prisoners standing around him, he had an idea. All right? I promise you. Of course, he wasn't really willing to serve Yuanxu. In order to stabilize Yuanxu, he pretended to be loyal and then looked for an opportunity to leave with the prisoners. Yuanxu didn't answer. He just stared at Hui with purple mist swirling in his pupils. No. You're lying to me. Yuanxu waved his long sleeve and a purple vortex formed in his hand. Seeing this, the prisoners around Hui immediately took a step forward and pushed forward together. A defensive wall was suddenly formed. Although they had lost most of their consciousness, they were still instinctively afraid of Yuanxu. They didn't attack him, but subconsciously activated their defense. If that's the case, I'll have to search your soul to find out your secret, Yuanxu said, and the purple vortex in his hand suddenly expanded. The surrounding wind swept and a huge suction began to twist. Wood, gravel, and other objects were quickly sucked into the purple vortex and disappeared. The energy wall in front of Hui also began to ripple. Wisps of energy mist were sucked away and poured into the purple vortex. As Yuanxu pushed out the vortex in his hand, the energy wall began to shake violently as if it would break at any time. Looking at the 23 prisoners who were struggling to resist in front of him, Yuanxu's expression was indifferent. Although the prisoners were strong, they had yet to recover their peak combat power. There was still a huge gap between them and him. Even though they worked together, it was still very difficult for the prisoners to resist. Under the continuous extraction of spiritual energy, some of them couldn't take it anymore. Their bodies started to show signs of depletion of spiritual energy. However, none of them chose to retreat or escape because he was standing behind them. "Run. Don't worry about me, I won't die." Hui's heart trembled and he couldn't help but roar. Although it was a short-term friendship, their sincerity had moved Hui. He couldn't bear to see them risk their lives for him. Pfft! The prisoners coughed up blood at the same time. The blood gushed out and turned into blood beads that flew into the purple vortex. Their bodies trembled under the pressure of Yuanxu's powerful force. They seemed to be unable to hold on any longer. Their dull eyes were bloodshot, but they still gritted their teeth and held on. At this moment, they once again recalled the time in the endless darkness. There was only one thought in their minds, which was to protect their big brother with their lives and never allow him to be hurt. Even though their bodies were on the verge of collapse and they didn't dare to bear the burden, they still didn't take a step back. "Run. Big dumb, too dumb, you bunch of idiots. I said I won't die." Hui looked at them and couldn't help but roar. Hearing Hui shout, they turned their heads with pale faces and a silly smile appeared on their dull faces. They were simple and innocent. The attachment in their eyes was very clear, causing Hui's heart to tremble. "Huff!" The leading prisoner, whom Hui called Big Dumb, suddenly roared. The clothes on his body tore apart, revealing the upper body of a muscular horned dragon. Chapter 252. As he waved his arms, blue veins appeared and a layer of crimson energy appeared on the surface of his body. "Ha!" Another person began to follow Big Fool's movements and waved his arms. One by one, they suddenly gave up on defense and allowed the purple energy to sweep over them. They began to dance according to Big Fool's movements and rhythm. Yuanxu's pupils suddenly shrank when he saw this scene. He could not help but exclaim, "Blood sacrifice war dance!" Ha! 23 people stomped their feet at the same time and slammed their right arms on their chests. Crimson energy suddenly swept over their bodies. Yuanxu's expression became extremely solemn when he saw this scene. The blood sacrifice war dance was a kind of oath dance performed by ancient people before a battle. It could be traced back to the earliest tribal period in this region. Every time the war dance began, it meant that the warriors were about to sacrifice their lives for their tribe and fight a bloody battle. They burned their own essence, qi, and spirit like a brave warrior cutting off his own wrist, using everything he had in exchange for a short period of strength. As they danced, blood and sweat flowed down their bodies. The crimson energy grew stronger and stronger. After slamming their chests again, their eyes turned red. "Even so, I'm not someone you can fight against." Yuanxu roared angrily and the purple vortex suddenly expanded. Their bodies were burning and their physical limits were being squeezed out. The crimson energy condensed by the 23 people resisted Yuanxu's attack and continued to push forward. At this moment, Hui was completely stunned. He saw the analysis menu of Big Fool and the others, as well as the self-sacrifice prompt in the status bar. Are they fighting for me with their lives? Hui was not the only one. Even the players in the originally lively live streaming channel stopped their bullet screens and stared fixedly at the screen. Their hearts were trembling slightly. "Run. Stop sacrificing yourselves. Don't. You said that you want me to be your big brother. It hasn't been long and you're already disobedient. I'm telling you to leave. If you don't listen to me, I won't want you anymore." Hui shouted hysterically. At this moment, he really hoped that these fools would listen to him and leave as soon as possible, as far as possible. However, Big Fool and the others turned a deaf ear to him and continued to dance. Along with the flow of sweat and blood, they squeezed out their own life force. Boom! There was a sudden explosion at the point of collision and Yuanxu was sent flying. On the other hand, Big Dumbo and the rest appeared in front of Hui in a flash. They used their bodies to form a human wall to resist the impact of the shockwave. Listen to me, please listen to me. I'm begging you, don't risk your life. He looked at Big Dumb and the others with a pleading expression. Big Dumb and the rest did not say anything. They just stared at he with a silly smile. Die. At this moment, Yuenshu, who had been sent flying, suddenly rose from the ground and pounced toward he with a furious roar. Phew! The war dance began once more. At this moment, they were like ancient warriors guarding a tribe. Each and every one of them ignited their lives and raised their fighting spirit. They swore that they wouldn't take a step back even if they died. His fighting spirit was burning. The furious Yuenshu was pushed back again and again. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood, but he still could not break through the flesh defense. Under such circumstances, Yuenshu went completely crazy. He could not accept his failure because it reminded him of someone, the person who pulled him down from the position of his excellency. All of you die. His long gray hair danced in the wind. Yuenshu no longer held back. He drew out all the spiritual energy in his body. A purple light ball surrounded by thunder and lightning formed between his hands and expanded continuously. Feeling the huge pressure, the 23 people still looked calm, but the red flames on their bodies burned even more fiercely. Their bodies dried up in the burning. At this moment they also let out a cry. Facing Yuenshu's final attack, they also chose to burn all their vitality just to protect their big brother who had accompanied them in the 10,000 years of darkness. They fought for him one last time. As the purple destructive ball attacked, circles of energy waves set off ripples and turned into a howling wind. At this moment, the 23 people were completely ignited. They took the initiative to confront it. When the two sides collided unexpectedly, there was no burst of energy shockwave. With a continuous sizzling sound, the purple destructive ball continued to melt. Seeing this scene, Yuenshu was completely stunned. Because they were using their last sacrificial power to melt the destructive ball instead of colliding with it. Was it for him? Yuenshu turned his head to look at his expression full of confusion. In the battle with the purple energy ball, charred bodies fell from the sky one by one, and the purple light ball gradually shrunk. At this moment, he bit his lips tightly and tears flowed uncontrollably. When the last body of Big Idiot fell, the surroundings fell into silence. All the energy was melted by them, and all he felt was a breeze brushing past his face. At this moment, he seemed to see Big Idiot and the rest floating past him, each of them smiling foolishly as if they were waving goodbye to him. Big brother. Goodbye. Why did you kill them? Why? F*** your mother, F*** your ancestors. At this moment, he was completely enraged. He ran madly towards Yuenshu, who was on the verge of collapse. There was only one thought in his mind. Kill him! Kill him! Slap! Yuenshu slapped he away and a sneer appeared on his weak face. There's no reason. They're all enemies, so they deserve to die. I just didn't expect them to be willing to use the blood sacrifice war dance to fight for you. I'm very shocked, but I also feel that it's a pity because the outcome can't be changed, can it? His eyes were burning with anger. He slowly got up from the ground, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and looked at Yuenshu with eyes full of resentment. However, Yuenshu only grinned. Although the process was unexpected, he still won in the end. At this moment, he suddenly turned around and came to the charred bodies of Big Idiot and the rest. Under Yuenshu's puzzled gaze, he solemnly stored their bodies into the space one by one. After storing all 23 bodies, he slowly turned around and stared at Yuenshu, as if he wanted to imprint his appearance into his heart. I, hereby swear to all 23 brothers that one day, I will take your dog life. He took out a dagger from the space. Yuenshu, I'll wait for that day to come. I'll make you afraid. This is my vow to all my brothers. After saying this, He stabbed the dagger into his neck under Yuanchu's incredulous gaze. Even if he had to die, he would never want to die in Yuanchu's hands. The scene gradually dimmed and everything became blurry. He used to think that he was just an ordinary player who had a different kind of happiness from other players. But now, he suddenly felt a heavy burden on his shoulders. Because from now on, he had to shoulder the blood feud of his 23 brothers. At this moment, he had an incomparable desire to become stronger because he understood how important strength was in this world where the strong preyed on the weak. Whether it was fake or real, nothing else mattered. At this moment, in He's heart, those 23 people were his brothers. At the moment when the scene completely dimmed, he seemed to see the simple smiling faces again. He also saw the 23 bodies roaring and dancing, using the ancient warriors' battle dance to stimulate the limits of their bodies to protect him. He slowly closed his eyes, but tears fell again. Chapter 253. The gaming chamber opened slowly, but he did not get up. Instead, he lay there quietly with his eyes closed. He was the one who dug them out from the seal, and he was the one who brought them out of the endless darkness. If it wasn't for him, none of this would have happened. He initially wanted to use these 23 people for his own benefit. At that time, he did not have any psychological burden at all. However, just now, these 23 people pledged their loyalty to him with their flesh and blood. In the end, they even used their lives to protect his safety. All of this had greatly shaken his heart. He gradually clenched his fists, and his body trembled from the tension of his muscles. He had always thought that he was actually optimistic and a little cowardly. However, at this moment, he felt that he had never been so angry before. Yuanchu's sneer and indifference appeared in front of him. He screamed in his heart, wishing he could tear him apart. After venting his anger, he opened his eyes. 23 brothers, you will not disappear. In the future, you will walk side by side with me. I, will bear your revenge. This is the first promise a cowardly man like me can make in my life. At this moment, he had already made up his mind to refine all 23 brothers into zombie spirits. They would continue to accompany him and work hard for revenge. Looking at who dissipated in the wind in front of him, Yuanchu's expression was complicated. The development of the situation was beyond his expectations. Originally, he only wanted to subdue who had great potential, but he did not expect it to end in such a way. However, Yuanchu did not have any pity in his heart. Although he was shocked by the 23 people who risked their lives to protect him, an enemy was an enemy, and an enemy deserved to die. He would not sympathize with any enemy because he had walked this path step by step. If he had pity, he felt that he would have died on the road to becoming His Excellency. Cough, cough. Yuanchu walked into the long ruined palace and arrived at the sealed entrance of the endless darkness. He reached out his hand and grabbed downwards. Immediately, the figure of Fenshui the Ghost King appeared. Plop! The moment he appeared, Fenshui the Ghost King knelt on the ground. His eyes were lifeless as he kowtowed and muttered words like, "No. No." Looking at the battered Fenshui the Ghost King, Yuanchu shook his head. "Come and find me after you recover." Having said that, his figure turned into a phantom and headed toward the mysterious dragon tomb. In the darkened screen of the livestream, the players were no longer as noisy as before. Everyone was in deep sorrow. While the 23 figures shocked they also shocked everyone in the live streaming channel. The images of the 23 figures roaring and dancing were still vivid in their minds. This tragic scene reminded them of their old friends. Lu Mo, the fat chef, instructor Chu Feng. This was a real world, because in the hearts of the players they were real. At this moment the players were enraged, completely enraged. In the regional channel, the players were shouting. They wanted to fight and kill Yuanchu. They entered the game one after another and began to gather in the hidden dragon. All of them looked determined. In fact, they all knew that their forces were no match for Yuanchu's army, but so what? They just wanted to vent their frustrations and fight hysterically. At this moment, Lu Wu started the expedition mission again. The Baiki army, which had been waiting for a long time, poured in. At this moment, both the European server and the original server had let go of their previous estrangement. This time, they were only fighting for the sake of those 23 people. They were players, but they were also humans, so they valued relationship. The 23 warriors had died for Hu He, but they had also died for the players. Even if they were defeated in this battle, they had to kill until corpses littered the field and blood flowed for thousands of miles. They had to kill until their enemies trembled in fear. The incessant sound of the horn to assemble in the sky above the hidden dragon startled the evil king. He immediately flew into the air and arrived above the hidden dragon village. Immediately, he was shocked to find that there were more than 10 million players there, preparing for battle. "Are you guys crazy? What are you trying to do?" The evil king, who noticed Li Xing's figure, immediately landed and appeared beside him. "Evil king, don't stop us in this battle. Otherwise, you will be our enemy," Li Xing said indifferently. "You." The evil king had no idea what was going on. The entire player clan was preparing for battle. He did not want to lose this powerful subordinate army just like that. Looking around and seeing the solemn faces, the evil king, who wanted to reprimand them, was speechless. He was the embodiment of evil thoughts, so he could clearly feel the anger in the hearts of the players. This anger gathered into a burning cloud above the hidden dragon village, surging and expanding continuously. At this moment, the evil king was silent. He knew that he could not stop it. "I won't support you," the evil king said while looking at Li Xing. "No need." After saying that, Li Xing raised the sword in his hand high. "Brothers, use this battle to send off the 23 warriors and 23 brothers. As long as our army is not destroyed, this battle will not end." Roar. The players roared in response. The anger in their chests was burning fiercely, and they needed to vent it out. "Let's go." Roar. The army of players took heavy steps and set off from the hidden dragon village, advancing step by step toward the mysterious dragon tomb. Looking at the leaving army of the player clan, the evil king had a complicated expression. The army advanced and the battle flag fluttered. With such a large army pressing on the border, the demon wolf blade and the mad spider ghost king who were stationed here had naturally noticed it. They quickly sent people to the mysterious dragon tomb to inform them, and then prepared for battle. When the mighty army of players stepped into the border of the demonic realm, the armies of the two ghost kings had already gathered in the distance. "The evil king doesn't want to live. Do you want to live too? If we fight, you will definitely lose." The mad spider ghost king looked at the army of players and roared, his voice spreading forward. Li Xing did not answer, but raised the sword in his hand. "Kill, vent your anger, and comfort the fallen warriors with the blood of the enemies." Roar. The players began to run and charge. As for the threat of the mad spider ghost king, it was nothing in their eyes. Facing the mighty army of players, the demon wolf blade and the mad spider ghost king's hearts trembled. This battle was not what they wanted, but they could only brace themselves and endure it. Defense. Along with the roar of the mad spider ghost king, the army of demonized people immediately stood guard, forming a defensive shield wall and waited solemnly. Boom. The army of players faced them head-on and charged forward crazily. The defensive shield wall shook wildly under the impact of the players, and the demonized people in the front row tried their best to resist, trying to hold the line. However, the madness of the players was far beyond their imagination. They stepped on the shoulders of their comrades and jumped into the army of demonized people. Even though they knew that they would be surrounded by countless attacks, they were still fearless. In this battle, they did not need strategies or formations. All they wanted was to kill and vent their anger. The anger in their hearts was the sharpest spear, piercing the enemy's seemingly unbreakable defense bit by bit, constantly pushing forward. Under such a crazy attack, The defense line of the demonized people collapsed before it could even hold on for a moment, causing the expressions of the two Ghost Kings to change drastically. Then, they leaped up and pounced on the army of players. The Ghost Kings were indeed very powerful, and their appearance increased the casualties of the players in the front row. However, they had nothing to fear. Kill. Turn the world upside down. Whether it was the Ghost King or Yuanxiu, they dared to kill anyone who stood in their way. Chapter 254. The two Ghost Kings were stunned by the terrifying lethality unleashed by the army of players who were seething with fighting spirit. There was no doubt that the difference in mentality between the two sides was huge. They were fighting for Yuanxiu and had to hold on even if they had no other choice. However, the players were fighting for themselves, brothers, and friends. This battle was also a battle of revenge. The two Ghost Kings who were fighting hard in the encirclement began to lose strength as time went by. They didn't understand why the players were fighting so desperately. Was it worth it? This was a question that the two Ghost Kings couldn't figure out. They had experienced countless battles on the battlefield and understood that the position of a powerhouse on the battlefield was definitely a place of death. Any smart soldier would not be stupid enough to come close and die. However, the players were completely different from what they thought. They were like ants that wanted to devour an elephant, surging forward madly and inflicting damage on them without a care for their lives. Under such a terrifying attack, the two Ghost Kings could only hold on for less than 10 minutes before flying back and hiding behind the army, panting heavily. At this moment, a trace of fear suddenly emerged from the bottom of their hearts. They were not afraid of the strength of the players, but the fearless momentum that they gathered. Even the two Ghost Kings had to admit that they were true warriors. This was because this army was fighting them with their lives. It seemed that from the moment they joined the battle, they had never thought of going back. This was their guess, but the players proved it with their actions, causing the two Ghost Kings to tremble. Yes, they were afraid. In the distance, the evil king looked at the battlefield with a complicated expression. In his sight, an illusory burning cloud surged above the players, and he also saw the players' high fighting spirit in the face of death. Did they really want to be annihilated? At this moment, he suddenly remembered what Li Xing said back then. "My clan is warlike and not afraid of death." This sentence sounded like a complete joke to him at that time, but this time, the player clan proved everything with battle. The entire clan was warlike and not afraid of death. This was an army of 10 million fearless warriors. Even the evil king was deeply shocked by the players. He was formed from evil thoughts. Although he had consciousness and emotions, he couldn't understand why the players were fighting with their lives on the line. Am I really just an evil thought that can't understand the meaning of life? The evil king looked a little confused. At this time, the players were killing with bloodshot eyes. Their roars frightened the soldiers of the infernal realm so much that they felt like their guts were about to burst. The thought of fleeing surfaced in the hearts of every demon realm warrior. Their remaining fighting spirit was like a wisp of flame in the midst of a gale, about to be extinguished by the storm-like player army at any moment. No one is allowed to run. The army will be here soon. Hold on. Anyone who dares to retreat will be killed. The two Ghost Kings roared with all their might, trying to stabilize the morale of their army. However, in the face of the storm that was the player army, everything was futile. The army's morale had collapsed, and the flames of fighting spirit had long since been extinguished. Their defeat was like a wildfire, causing them to retreat step by step in fear. Faced with this situation, the two Ghost Kings once again jumped into the crowd of players, trying to stop them from advancing. "So what if you're the Ghost King? I'm going to kill you. As long as our army is not destroyed, this battle will not end. Kill. Those who offend my brothers and friends will be killed no matter how far away they are. Kill, kill, kill." The angry roars of the players could be heard all around. They were using this battle to comfort the spirits in heaven, and also to calm the anger in their hearts. The players' massacre continued, and the Infernal Realm's army retreated step by step. Some of the soldiers even lost their fighting spirit and began to flee. No matter how the two ghost kings roared, they could not stop their hearts that were dominated by fear. After clenching their teeth and holding on for a moment, the two ghost kings finally could not hold on any longer and began to retreat with their soldiers. The players' anger had not been vented yet, so how could they let them leave? Each of them continued to advance with bloodshot eyes. Dong! 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 The military drums were beating, and an overwhelming army came from the sky and the ground. Yuanshu's army gathered at this moment. The appearance of the reinforcements surprised the two ghost kings, and they began to command the Infernal Realm's army to launch another counterattack. However, the players' expressions did not change at all. From the moment they set off, no one wanted to return alive. To them, this battle was just the beginning. The joint army of the 8 ghost kings and more than 10 ghost generals gathered. At this moment, the huge military power of Yuanshu's army was displayed. By the 4th hour of the battlefield was littered with corpses, and nearly 1/3 of the players' army had been wiped out. But so what? Fearlessness and anger were their best weapons and sources of strength. As long as they were alive, they would fight. 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 Although they had a huge advantage, it was undeniable that every commander of Yuanshu's army was trembling. Did they want to be annihilated? One of the ghost kings asked with a trembling voice. As soon as he said that, all the ghost kings fell silent. Who? In the army's live chat channel, the players shouted the warriors' war dance before they left. Baki army, kill with me! Our blood is boiling, we can't sleep this night, we can't stop this battle. Xianshu army, kill with me! Let's exchange our blood for the enemy's guts. Li Xing and Lu Chai shouted the oath in the army's live chat channel at the same time, making the players' blood boil. Corpses littered the field and blood flowed for thousands of miles. This was their blood sacrifice. The 23 warriors protected Hu-He with the blood sacrifice war dance, so they would return the favor with the enemy's blood. At this moment, a figure appeared in the sky. He looked down at the players below, his eyes full of shock. Against the backdrop of the corpses on the ground, the sound of battle was like a tragic elegy, shocking everyone. At this moment, Yuanshu was touched. He admitted that the players who were fighting with their lives on the line were warriors worthy of his respect. But enemies were enemies after all. Since they took the initiative to attack, Yuanshu would not show them any sympathy. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. At this moment, his figure crashed toward the army of players like a comet. Old Yuanshu, since you're so heartless, I'll use your worthless life as a sacrifice for my 23 warriors. Kill! As the wind howled, all the players looked up at Yuanshu, who was descending from the sky. They raised their weapons high up in the air, and their fighting spirit was like the clouds of fighting spirit that had gathered in the sky, surging and burning. Roar! All the players shouted in unison, waiting for Yuanshu's arrival. At this moment they were not afraid. They only hoped to use their own strength to leave a mark on Yuanshu's body. Just as Yuanshu was about to collide with the army of players, a black shadow suddenly appeared and firmly blocked Yuanshu's attack, pushing him back. When the black fog dissipated, the evil king's figure stood in the air. "From now on, your opponent is me," said the evil king calmly as he looked at Yuanshu, who was flying backward. Seeing the evil king's appearance, Yuanshu's face turned pale. "You said you wouldn't come." Li Xing raised his head and said. Upon hearing this, the evil king turned his head and laughed sinisterly. "Ha ha ha, you're all my soldiers. From this moment on, I officially recognize you. So, I'll stop Yuanshu in this battle." After saying this, the evil king suddenly turned his head and roared. His body suddenly turned into a huge statue and pounced toward Yuanshu. Roar! With Yuanshu blocked, the players changed their direction again and killed the enemies that were coming from all directions. Chapter 255. Although Yuanshu was powerful, he had been injured in the previous battle. Facing the evil king's close combat oppression, he could only fight passively and was unable to support Yuanchu's army below. At this moment, the players were united as before, charging forward with indomitable will. Tonight we are brothers who fight side by side. Tonight we are death warriors who are unafraid of death. Tonight we are warriors who are bathed in blood. Tonight we are not fighting for victory, but to erase the resentment in our hearts. Besieged on all sides, the beating of the war drums and the shouts of the enemies assaulted the eardrums of the players. They turned around, brandished their weapons, roared at the sky, and took a step forward at the same time. Boom! The ground shook. Kill! Accompanied by the shouts, the players once again launched a fearless charge. The blood of the enemies was the best gift for the dead warriors. At this moment they had forgotten that they were just players and were completely immersed in the battle. The smell of blood lingered at the tip of their noses. The so-called cruelty of the battlefield belonged to the enemies, while the players only had the burning fighting spirit. Faced with the continuous deaths of his subordinates, Yuanchu wanted to go down and support them several times. However, under the control of the evil king, he could only defend and was unable to do so. Turning his head to look at the blood-soaked players below, the corner of the evil king's mouth curled up. Is dying in battle an honor? What a terrifying race! Evil king, you will regret making me your enemy! Yuanchu shouted. The evil king did not say a word. His figure flashed again, and his giant palm slammed down. Long dragons formed around his arm, then roared and bit at Yuanchu. Facing the evil king, who was pestering him, Yuanchu's hostility skyrocketed. In fact, the reason why he was unwilling to continue fighting with the evil king was because he knew that the evil king could not die. Even if he won, it would be of no use. The most important thing was to help the army reduce the losses. After all, he could not lose this army. This was where he would have the right to speak to the outside world after he took control of this region in the future. They are lunatics, they are lunatics. After being repelled again, a ghost king could not help but roar. He had never met such an opponent before. He was really afraid. It was obviously a huge advantage, but from the ghost king's point of view, it felt like the players were the attackers, while they were passively defending. At this time, more than half of the player army had been killed or injured. However, they did not stop advancing, resolutely advancing step by step. Their swords were still as sharp as ever, reaping the lives of their enemies. The players weren't afraid of death, but they were. The fallen figures were the warriors that they had painstakingly trained. They were their most important external force. Seeing their clansmen fall in droves, their hearts couldn't help but tremble. If they could, they really wanted to retreat. They didn't want to accompany the lunatics anymore. But under the frenzied attacks of the players, even the right to abandon the battle was taken away. In the endless slaughter, the silhouettes of the players fell one after another, only to be immediately replaced by those who came later, shouldering the fighting spirit of their comrades and continuing forward with their swords. They had really managed to leave the enemy's corpses strewn all over the ground and blood flowing for thousands of miles. As time passed, the number of comrades decreased, but the players became fiercer and fiercer. They were like hungry wolves. Wherever their bloodthirsty eyes landed, the soldiers of the Yuanchu army would subconsciously lower their heads, not daring to look at them. At the end of the battle, there were only 1,000,000 players left in the encirclement. The battle seemed to be coming to an end, but neither Yuanchu nor the Ghost Kings below felt that they had won. Because, in terms of mentality and morale, they were the ones who had lost. At this time, the sky started to rain. The blood-colored drizzle sprinkled down, making the atmosphere of the battlefield even more tragic. Ha ha ha, they're afraid, they're afraid. Seeing the Yuanchu army surrounding the 1,000,000 players but not daring to advance, the evil king couldn't help but laugh. At this time, he only felt satisfied. The players had used this battle to prove themselves and had won his respect. Although the self-proclaimed player clan was about to fall, the evil king remembered them in his heart. Because they had ignited their own blood. It was a wonderful feeling. In countless years, he had never felt such a strange feeling. It was very hot-blooded, very excited, very carefree. Kill! Facing the Yuanshu army who didn't dare to advance, the players roared in unison. They pointed their swords to the front and brandished their swords at the enemy again. They launched a charge. It was as if they were not the ones being surrounded, but the soldiers of Yuanshu army. Even though they were defeated, the players' morale had completely overwhelmed these battle-hardened veterans. Only die in battle on the battlefield, there is no need to return the corpse on the battlefield. Dark clouds hung low and blood rain fell continuously. When the last player fell, the tensed nerves of the entire Yuanshu army suddenly collapsed. One by one, they fell to the ground and panted heavily. Even though the players were dead, the fear in their hearts still did not fade. This was a victory, but no one cheered or sang praises. There was only a feeling of survival after a disaster. Looking around, the corpses were everywhere and the blood that had gathered on the battlefield formed potholes of blood. This made their hearts tremble again. They were afraid. It was as if all the energy in their bodies had been sucked out. They even lost the courage to stand up. The Ghost Kings were also stunned on the spot. Their hearts were just like those terrified soldiers, but they suppressed their fear and did not reveal it. At this moment they suddenly felt a sense of relief. They were dead. Fortunately, they were dead. The army of players had left a deep impression in their hearts. It was like a shadow that they could not get rid of. Ha ha, Yuanshu, you've lost. Look at them. In the sky, the evil king pointed at Yuanshu army and laughed wildly. The sarcasm in his eyes was obvious. At this moment, Yuanshu's face was ashen. However, that was the truth. The soldiers below had long lost their will to fight. Even if they won, it was no different from losing. This is my army. Floating in the sky, the evil king looked down at Yuanshu army. His roar shook the sky, causing the Yuanshu army soldiers below to tremble again. Do you think the battle is over? This is just the beginning. Get ready. Next, you will face my army. I will avenge them. All of you must die. Remember, all of you must die. Ha ha, this is great. I've never felt so great in my life. The Yuanshu army soldiers below looked up at the evil king who was laughing crazily in the sky. Their eyes were filled with fear. Is it not over yet? Are there still such warriors? At this moment, fear spread from the bottom of their hearts. It was as if they could see the fearless army that was formed by millions of people appearing before them again. They showed their long swords to them. Chapter 256. The evil king's sneer and oath sent a chill down the spines of the soldiers of Yuanshu's army. They used to be confident that they would be able to gain the ownership of the land of Tsangshu. But now they asked themselves if there were more fearless warriors like them, would they still be able to win? They won this battle, but at the same time, they also lost because they were mentally defeated, even if they had a huge advantage in the battle. Looking at the evil king who was laughing hysterically, Yuanshu's expression was extremely ugly. This battle had a huge impact on his subordinates, and it would definitely affect the mentality of his own soldiers in future battles. This made Yuanshu extremely angry. Yuanshu, I'm leaving. Are you going to stop me? At this moment, the evil king turned his head and taunted Yuanshu with a hideous smile. Yuanshu did not speak, but the anger in his eyes was obvious. If the evil king dared to provoke him like this when he was at his peak, he would definitely capture him and find a place to seal him. But now, he was injured from the continuous battles. Even if he wanted to stop the evil king, he could not do so. Then I'm leaving, ha ha. Accompanied by the evil king's maniacal laughter, his body shrunk and turned into a stone statue, speeding towards the south. The sudden outbreak of the war officially ended at this moment. Is this your demonstration? You did it, but I won't lose. Yuenshu murmured as he looked at the direction where the evil king left. Then, he turned his head to look at the soldiers below who had long lost their fighting spirit. Feeling a surge of anger in his heart, he could not help but shout, "Retreat! Go back to the hidden dragon army!" After the war ended, the players were watching the replay of the video in the battle official forum. In this war, they managed to push forward with indomitable will, and they also managed to make the enemy terrified. Although they lost the war, the players felt that they had won because the enemy was afraid. Crayon_Shinchan. Awesome! Thank the officials for starting the expedition in time, otherwise I would have gone to kill the Rock Ghost King since I had nowhere to vent my anger. The Rock Ghost Tree replied to Crayon_Shinchan, Motherf***Ker, just you wait. Shueli_the_strongest. Awesome! The number of times the Calamity Army has been united like this can be counted on one hand. The first time was Cha Na, the second time was the Sea King, and the third time will be this time. I really hope that everyone will be united, but unfortunately, there will always be conflict. As the saying goes, where there are people, there will be conflicts. Leader of the demolition officers. No matter what internal strife we have, when external enemies appear, we are brothers, we are comrades. When we are united, we are invincible and invincible. High latency warrior, Europe, that's right. Perhaps after this battle, our two servers will still be competing and comparing with each other. But when enemies invade, our swords will never be pointed at our own people. Watermelon_Taro. Long live the battle! Tonight's battle has really made my blood boil. Assassin's Creed. Our army is invincible. Yuenshu is just a stop in our future journey, just like a whetstone. Our pace of conquest will never stop. Brothers, do your best. Star Universe. Europe, good luck, brothers. Reinhardt. Europe, good luck, brothers. Knight of the Abyss. Europe, brothers, do your best. Looking at the players' comments, Lu Wu could not help but smile in relief. When he saw the 23 warriors die for who even Lu Wu was shocked. He was enraged as well, because he knew that everything was real. They really used their flesh and blood to defend who against Yuenshu. Therefore, when the players began to gather, he did not hesitate to start the expedition and let the Baki players join the battle. This battle had indeed shocked Lu Wu. The players once again proved that their potential was limitless. The victors were dejected and lost their fighting spirit, while the losers were full of fighting spirit and were already looking forward to the future. This was the huge gap between the Yuenshu army and the players. Just like what they said in the forum, Yuenshu was just a stop in the journey, it was never the end. After this battle, Lu Wu would no longer start the expedition between the Xian Su army and the Yuenshu army because this was a test for the European server players and also a whetstone for their growth. On the other hand, the Baki players would focus on the land of the 9 luminaries, which would be the location of their new journey. The players could always create surprises, and Lu Wu always had high hopes for them. The battle ended in the hidden dragon village. A stone statue came from afar and landed in the village. Looking at the surrounding buildings and empty streets, the evil king's heart was filled with emotions. This is a true fighting clan. It's my fortune to have them. The battle of the player clan also made his blood boil, and he would remember it in his heart. However, this battle had completely exhausted the foundation of this clan. The evil king's heart was filled with regret. This was supposed to be the biggest trump card in his hand. Sigh. The evil king could not help but let out a long sigh. As he was about to leave, he suddenly noticed that there seemed to be some movement inside the village. He furrowed his brows and immediately left in a flash. However, when he arrived at the southernmost part of the village, the evil king was dumbfounded. He saw countless players walking out of a circle that looked like an altar. Don't push me, make way, let me out. F***CK, are you kidding me? The resurrection point is jammed. Make way, people are stacking up. Brothers outside, can you get out quickly? It's jammed inside. Are you guys stacking up a human wall? I can't breathe. Make way, I want to get out. Looking at the dense crowd of players surging out of the altar, the evil king was stunned. At this time, he saw a familiar figure. He immediately extended his hand and grabbed forward. Instantly, Li Xing, who was stuck in the crowd, was sucked out. Why aren't you dead? Looking at the familiar face, the evil king was stunned. Seeing the evil king arrive so quickly, Li Xing was also stunned. Fortunately, he was prepared, so he said, "Oh, Lord Evil King. Oh, Lord Evil King, I did die, but I resurrected." Resurrected? Yes, our player clan has a racial talent. After death, we will be resurrected at the clan's altar. Everyone has 3 lives. Hearing this, the evil king was dumbfounded. F***ck, then I was touched for nothing? However, there were many immortal abilities in the underworld, but he had never heard of resurrection abilities. Confused, the evil king waved his hand and sucked all the players piled up in the resurrection point out. Then, he flashed to the resurrection point and began to carefully observe the altar below. However, the altar was just a decoration. All of its functions were within the battle artifact. How could the evil king see through it? No matter how much he studied it, he could only come up with one conclusion. The altar was very ordinary, so ordinary that there was nothing special about it. Resurrection ability? How terrifying! This racial talent that he had never heard of really shocked the evil king. Although he was curious about the structure of this ability, he could not see through this resurrection altar with his ability, so he could only give up. However, at this moment the evil king was very happy. Initially, he thought that he had completely lost this fearless army. He did not expect them to be resurrected. The evil king could not help but laugh at the joy of regaining what he had lost. He flashed to Li Xing's side and reached out to pat his shoulder. "It's good that you can resurrect, it's good that you can resurrect." At this moment, the evil king looked at Li Xing with satisfaction. It was the complete opposite of the contempt he had when they first met. Although he knew the reason why the players were not afraid of death, to the evil king, they were still true warriors. Even if he had 3 lives, it would be impossible for him to give up one so easily without great courage. This battle had proven the great potential of the player clan, and their existence was enough to deter the entire Yuanshu army. At this moment, the evil king was full of confidence in winning the position of His Excellency. Chapter 257. Beginner Battle-Type Ghost Commander Trial Challenge, applicable for all battle-type professions. Seeing that Lu Chai was sent flying, the livestream suddenly became lively. Seeing so many people supporting him, Lu Chai was a little embarrassed. After all, he did not have much confidence in this battle. "I'm finally at level 100. Let's try to challenge the Ghost Commander and do a livestream for our guild brothers. Don't plan to pass, it's purely for entertainment, don't take it seriously." Poster. Leader of the demolition officers. Moreover, after entering the land of Naraka, Lu Wu would not create a resurrection point before the players took over the ownership of an area. At the same time, Lu Wu's soul coin income began to increase rapidly. However, the violent beast's reaction was extremely quick. When it saw that its attack was unsuccessful, it twisted its body on the spot. The wooden stick that had been smashed on the ground slashed up diagonally, hitting Lu Chai's chest hard and sending him flying. Every resurrection was changed to a random location in a fixed area. The difference in physical quality between the two was huge. It was impossible to pull away from it. Lu Chai could only bite the bullet and face it head-on. Crayon_Shinchan replied to A_large_wolfdog, "Since you're sticking to me, I'll pet your head first." Laughing emoji. After pressing the confirm button, his vision dimmed. When it became clear again, Lu Chai found himself in the wilderness. Facing the roaring violent beast, Lu Chai did not dare to fight it head-on. He quickly rolled on the ground and dodged the wooden stick that was slashing at him. Shueli_the_strongest. Go for it, Guild Master Lu Chai. As the power gem on his body flashed, he raised his right arm. Other than killing the Death Clan in the Void Ocean, the players' harassment in the territories of the Hydra King and the Rock Ghost King became more frequent. Of course, he did not have much hope. Boom! As for the subsequent servers in the Asia server, Lu Wu was already making preparations. He set up a new template for them and developed a diversified development path for the players. Of course, Lu Wu would definitely choose a relatively weak area in the land of Naraka for the fixed resurrection point. Beginner Support Type Ghost Commander Trial Challenge, applicable to all support type professions. At this time, Lu Chai had finally reached level 100 after the battle last night. He had also reached the minimum requirement to challenge the Ghost Commander trial. The challenge fee was a large part of his recent soul coin income. In front of him was a 3-meter-tall, hideous-looking giant orc holding a thick wooden stick, glaring at him fiercely. Crayon_Shinchan. Guild Leader Demolition, what are you waiting for? Use Sacrifice and hit him with Poseidon. With this skill activated, I guarantee that you'll be able to kill him instantly. At most, you'll just have to start all over again. It's just level 0, what's there to be afraid of? Therefore, the reason why he challenged Lu Chai this time was just to test the waters and see the gap between him and a real Ghost Commander level monster. After the description dimmed, a countdown appeared in front of Lu Chai. After all, the new server was spawned in Naraka. However, the players knew their limit. At the very least, they knew that the Rock Ghost King and the Hydra King had provided great help in the battle against the Sea King. Hence, they were being merciful. Squadron Leader of the Demolition Officers. Go Violent Beasts, laughing emoji. After the battle in the Infernal Realm, the desire of the players to become stronger became especially strong. Before the challenge officially begins, I will solemnly state that no HP potions, amplification potions, blessing scrolls, or after paying the fee at the Mansion of the Dead's management office, 2 selection panels appeared in front of him. They started with the Doomsday Survival Mode, a challenge of hell difficulty. The number of players in the Australian server and other servers that were originally planned to be built could not be compared to these big servers. Therefore, merging them was a good choice as it could greatly enhance the players' survivability in the early stage. That was to merge the servers. The 3 main servers of South America, North America, and Oceania would be merged into one server and renamed the Naraka server. As Lu Chai was currently the guild leader of Bakie's No. 1 guild, he was very popular among the players. His live broadcast quickly attracted the attention of many players. At this stage, many level 130 players could not pass the Ghost Commander trial. Even top players like Aojian, who was around level 120, only managed to pass it after 2 attempts. However, Lu Wu had not given them any notice. They could only grit their teeth and endure. The challenge officially began with the players' anticipation. Apart from using these soul coins for his own cultivation and the construction of Bakie, Lu Wu also needed to plan for the upcoming American server. Therefore, he had to be careful with all his expenses. At this moment, the figure of the violent beast appeared next to Lu Chai again, smashing the huge wooden stick on his head. This was also for the sake of the players because this big region was completely occupied by the strong clans. The possibility of taking over the territory at the beginning was almost zero. After this battle, Lu Wu had a new idea. Under the jeering of many guild members, Lu Chai decided to give the challenge a try. There were also some guild members who were watching the show and cheering for the violent beast. Otherwise, with the current combat power of the Bakie army, it would be a piece of cake for them to annihilate the Rock Ghost King and the Hydra King. At this time, the comments were divided into 2 factions, except for a few contrarians who encouraged Lu Chai to sacrifice his level. The Ghost Commander Trial Challenge has begun. Players, please get ready. Counting down from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. A large wolf dog replied to Crayon Shinchan, "Why is there always a contrarian like you everywhere?" Disdainful eyes. JPG. Lu Chai's body suddenly sank. At this moment, his left arm quickly struck toward the violent beast's armpit. Some of them hoped that Lu Chai would pass the trial and cheered for him. Demolition Squad leader. Go violent beast! Laughing emoji. However, today there was a livestream challenge post that made the players dumbfounded. This made the two Ghost Kings complain incessantly. Lu Chai had changed his class to a Rune Master, so naturally, he would choose a combat challenge. Apart from joining in the fun, the players who watched the Ghost Commander trial video also wanted to learn some combat skills to improve their abilities and prepare for the individual competition. Recently, the video of the Ghost Commander trial video had become popular on the Battle Official Forum. Lu Wu had decided on this idea after careful consideration. After all, there were only a few players who could defeat the Ghost Commander. Winning the challenge was undoubtedly something to be proud of, and at the same time, it proved one's strength. Other than the increase in the number of players and the increase in daily purchases, another important reason was that the number of players who went to challenge the Ghost Commander trial had skyrocketed. It could be said that the opening gameplay of the Naraka server was completely different from the European and Chinese servers. The attack was effective on the spot. The violent beast's arm was numb from the hit and it subconsciously took a step back. Of course, the players were not looking forward to Lu Chai showing off his prowess and beating up the trial monster. Instead, they wanted to see Lu Chai's battered and exhausted appearance so that they could mock him with the subtitles. In this chaotic region, there were many strong clans and many forbidden areas that could give birth to evil creatures. It was extremely difficult to survive here. Lu Chai's combat talent was undoubtedly strong. Seeing that his attack was effective, he did not hesitate at all. He immediately took a step forward and pushed the wooden stick away with his right arm. Then, he hit the violent beast's chest hard and pushed it back again. Random drawing of Ghost Commander level monster ended. Monster is violent beast, beginner stage of Ghost Commander. Random drawing of scenario ended. Scenario is skill demonstration area. Chapter 258. The battle between Lu Chai and the violent beast was very exciting. As they were both close combat, the scene was very violent. The players who were watching the live broadcast were very satisfied. It was as if they were watching an action blockbuster. However, as time went by, the players realized that Lu Chai's fighting style had changed. After figuring out the violent beast's attacking style, Lu Chai became more confident as he fought because he realized that he had a huge advantage. The defense of his right arm was unbreakable. In the following battles, whenever the violent beast's giant stick smashed down, Lu Chai would raise his right arm to meet it. Then, he would counterattack. With the invincible defense of Mu Zhiguang's right arm, the violent beast with the combat power of a Ghost Supreme Commander could not break his defense at all. Every time it was blocked, it would be quickly beaten by Lu Chai. Although its skin was rough and tough, it could not withstand such a beating. Looking at the violent beast's decreasing HP, the live broadcast room suddenly became lively. Crayon_Shinchan. I strongly recommend everyone to report Lu Chai for cheating. Is this right arm made of gold? How can it not lose HP after being smashed? I suggest the officials to investigate this matter thoroughly. Laughing emoji. Shueli_the_strongest. When did Boss Lu master the Qilin arm? Laughing emoji. Assassin_Creed. The Qilin right arm is terrifying. Laughing emoji. Invincible_loneliness. There should be a wet story behind this arm. Laughing emoji. Peppa_Boar. Ha ha ha, President Lu's way of passing the trial is too ridiculous. It's equivalent to holding up an invincible shield. If the violent beast had consciousness, it would probably be driven mad by you. Laughing emoji. The live broadcast room was in an uproar. Obviously, they did not expect Lu Chai to pass the trial in such a shameless way. However, this method was very effective. Mu Zhiguang was a Ghost Emperor-level powerhouse. Even if the violent beast in the early stage of the Ghost Supreme Commander exerted all its strength, it could not leave a mark on his arm, let alone break its defense. It could be said that the random close combat violent beast was completely restrained by Lu Chai in the battle. It could not exert its greatest strength at all. Every time its attack was blocked, it could only passively take a beating. Moreover, the Ghost Supreme Commander monsters in the trial were different from those in the outside world. They had no ability to think and only knew how to attack. Therefore, in the end, Lu Chai, who was at a disadvantage, relied on the invincible defense of his right arm to defeat the violent beast. Server announcement. Congratulations to player Lu Chai for breaking the Ghost Supreme Commander trial record. Level 100 Challenge Count 1. The appearance of this announcement shocked many players. They rushed into Lu Chai's streaming room to find out more information. After knowing that Lu Chai had defeated the violent beast with just one Qilin arm, the players who came later were stunned and went into an uproar. Kud was playing Chuan's way. However, Lu Chai's almost cheating method of clearing the stage had given other players a lot of inspiration. After this, the challenge of the Ghost Supreme Commander trial became more and more popular. The team ch that the players the clan the players were not. For example, many assassin players would run while setting up traps, waiting for enough traps to be used before launching a counterattack. There was also a mage player who had very cleverly learned all the summoning skills in the cultivation pavilion. When he entered the Ghost Commander trial, he did not even bring along his magic staff. Instead, he held up a shield and used his summoning skills throughout the battle. He ran around madly by himself, and occasionally, when a monster got close to him, he would raise his shield to block it. The players had more tricks up their sleeve. Strategies to pass the trial kept popping up. The monsters, who had no consciousness and only knew how to attack, could not handle the strategy. Even if it was a trap, they would jump on it. Lu Wu did not know whether to laugh or cry. The Ghost Supreme Commander trial was designed to match the players' strength and the underworld's cultivation system. However, the players had turned it into a strategy game. This was not what Lu Wu wanted to see. Therefore, while the second stage of the Ghost Supreme trial was unchallenged, Lu Wu decisively strengthened the combat awareness of the Ghost Supreme monsters in the second stage, so that they would no longer just charge around foolishly. Lu Wu did not intend to fix the tricks that the players found in the first stage. Since it was a bug that the players found with their own abilities, they should use it. Lu Wu knew that they would regret it. The second stage of the Ghost Supreme Commander trial was strengthened because of their trick. The players were still unaware of it. The forum was full of joy. They were sharing the strategies of different classes and fantasizing about the rewards they would get. Outside the border of Chidragon, a figure slowly approached from afar. He expressionlessly walked up to a huge rock that was half embedded in the mountain, and just stood there looking at the surface of the rock in a daze. A ray of light shot out from a tiny hole in the rock, and scanned the man in front of him. Beep. Identity confirmed. Welcome back, number 1. With the sound of an electronic machine, the rock cracked open slowly. The lights inside were turned on one by one, revealing a metal passage. This was an underground human body laboratory branch of the Jieda Technology Company outside the border of Chidragon. It was built in a very secluded location that was difficult to detect with the naked eye. This was where number 1 was modified and gained powers that surpassed that of ordinary humans. He stepped into the passageway and came to the end. A metal wall blocked his way. At this moment, the surveillance camera on the top of the wall turned slowly and pointed at number 1. It's number 1. Number 1 is back. Seeing the familiar figure on the screen, the surveillance personnel immediately took out the walkie-talkie and reported to the base director. Quick, let him in. Abel, who was sitting in the office with the base director, quickly said. He was full of anticipation when he thought about meeting the person in charge of the Battle Gaming Company, who had given him a headache. He even thought about how he was going to entertain this distinguished guest. As the metal door opened, an elevator leading to the underground was revealed. Number 1 immediately stepped into it. Number 1, go to the base director's office. He's looking for you. At this moment, the voice of the surveillance personnel was heard in the elevator. Number 1 did not answer and only nodded. Suddenly, a cold light flashed in his eyes. When the elevator reached the designated floor, the elevator door opened and Number 1 strode towards the base director's office. Along the way, he passed by the human body experiment warehouse and saw countless human bodies immersed in the nutrition chamber. These people's bodies were covered with scars and some of their skin had even ulcerated. They looked to be in great pain. Their eyes were tightly shut and they could only fall asleep with the help of hypnotic potions. When he arrived at the base director's office, Number 1 did not knock on the door. Instead, he opened the door and walked straight in. Seeing Number 1's arrival, Abel and the base director were stunned. "Why did you come in without knocking?" The base director immediately scolded. He was the authority in this base. Naturally, he was very angry with Number 1's unreasonable behavior. "Where is he? Where's the person in charge of Battle Online?" Abel did not care about this. He only wanted to see the person in charge of Battle Online. Therefore, when he saw that Number 1 came alone, he suddenly felt very anxious. After all, Battle Online was about to open the American server. If this matter was not settled, their market in the American server would be taken away by the Black Sea Corporation, just like the local and European servers. "I'm asking you, where is he?" Seeing that Number 1 did not speak, Abel immediately walked in front of him, grabbed his collar and roared. At this moment, a ferocious smile appeared on Number 1's face. With a fierce look in his eyes, he raised his hand and grabbed Abel's head, slamming it against the wall. Smack! Like a watermelon being split open, blood splattered everywhere. The base director who was standing at the side was instantly stunned by this scene. Chapter 259. As soon as Number 1 entered the door, the base director felt something was wrong. However, he still believed that Number 1 could be trusted after being brainwashed countless times. However, when Number 1 killed Abel without hesitation, he was completely shocked. Looking at Abel's body slowly sliding down the wall, the base director's heart trembled. "Number 1, what are you doing? Are you crazy? I'm ordering you to get out now." Number 1 did not answer. Instead, he strode towards the terrified base director. At this time, he had been re-brainwashed and reformed by Bailey. Naturally, the base director's order had no effect on him. Looking at Number 1 who was approaching, the base director quickly opened the drawer and pressed the regional alarm button in panic. Beep, beep, beep. The alarm rang at this moment. However, Number 1 was already approaching, and the base garrison could not provide support in time. At this moment, Number 1 reached out his hand and strangled the base director's neck, lifting him up bit by bit. The base director immediately began to struggle, slapping Number 1's arm randomly. His face gradually turned red due to the lack of oxygen. Crack! As the blue veins on Number 1's arm bulged, the base director's neck suddenly twisted, and he stopped struggling. After dropping the base director's body, Number 1 turned to the door and reached out to open it. Click, click. The sound of guns being loaded rang out. Unknowingly, the base garrison had gathered again. Number 1, hand over the base director. The leader, who was fully armed, shouted at Number 1. Seeing this, Number 1 took a step back into the room and closed the door. Then, with a roar, his muscles tightened, and he slammed into the wall on the side. Boom! The thick wall collapsed instantly under the impact of Number 1. The base guards outside were also taken aback. They immediately raised their guns and aimed at the dusty area. Roar! At this moment, a figure shot out from the haze, rushed into the garrison, and began to kill. At such a close distance, it was easy to accidentally shoot. They could only put down their guns and pull out their daggers, trying to stop number 1 who had gone berserk. However, number 1, who had been reformed by Bailey, was much stronger than before. The daggers could not break through number 1's tough skin. At this moment, number 1 was like a killing machine. The killing techniques he had trained for many years were on full display at this moment. In less than a moment, the 10 guards of the base were beheaded on the spot. After shaking off the blood flowing on his arm, number 1 suddenly turned his head and looked at the surveillance camera installed in the corner of the wall. A ferocious smile appeared on his face. Seeing this scene, the heart of the monitoring personnel trembled. He quickly pressed the base alarm button next to him, then picked up the walkie-talkie and connected to the base deputy director's communication channel. "Director Lee, number 1 has betrayed us. Number 1 has betrayed us. Now Director Lee has been killed, we need backup." "What? The director is dead?" Deputy Director Lee, who was looking at the recent human experiment data in the database, was shocked. He hurriedly turned around and sprinted into the laboratory. At the same time, he ordered the base's surveillance personnel to deploy the entire base's garrison forces to stop number 1. He had personally participated in the modification of number 1's body, so he naturally knew how terrifying number 1's strength was. Number 1 could completely be called a humanoid tank. Just the thought of how much damage number 1 would cause to the base if he went out of control scared him. However, since they had created number 1, they naturally had a backup plan. There was a remote control in the laboratory that could be used to control the bomb chip embedded in number 1's head. Although he didn't know if this matter could be controlled, he had to be fully prepared. If he couldn't stop number 1 from going out of control, then he could only cruelly destroy this weapon. With the sound of the alarm throughout the base, the personnel began to quickly gather and rush towards number 1's location according to the instructions of the monitoring personnel. At this time, number 1 was striding towards the base's main control room. His purpose of coming here was naturally to destroy this base. The main control room was set up with a self-destruct program. As long as this program was activated, the entire base would cease to exist. Originally, this program was prepared to not leave any traces after the base was discovered. However, number 1 felt that this was the right time to use it. Number 1. At this time, a figure ran from the side, then leaped up, and with a whip kick from top to bottom, it ruthlessly smashed onto number 1's forehead, causing him to subconsciously take a step back. Die. After the figure landed, he quickly closed in and swung his elbow towards number 1's neck. Seeing this, number 1's expression didn't change. He swung his left arm forward and blocked the elbow attack. Then his right arm went forward and wrapped around the neck of the figure in front of him. With a forceful downward push, his knee struck the person's chin. This knee strike was very fierce, causing the person to retreat continuously. There was a brief moment of confusion on his face. "Number 3, didn't you always think that you're stronger than me?" Looking at the retreating figure, number 1 suddenly laughed. Number 3, who came back to his senses, only felt that his vision was covered by a layer of shadow, and his ears were buzzing. "How is that possible? They said that my value is higher than yours. I was modified based on your foundation, so I should be stronger than you." Number 3 shook his head and reached out to the wall to support himself. He looked at number 1 in disbelief, who was smirking in front of him. At this time, number 1 felt very unfamiliar to him. They had gone on many missions together, so he knew number 1's strength very well. However, during the fight just now, he realized that number 1's strength had changed so much. Whether it was his strength or his conditioned reflexes, they were not on the same level as before. "Number 1, stop. You're out of control now. It's not too late to stop now. They won't kill you. You know that you're very valuable." Realizing that he was no match for number 1, number 3 immediately tried to persuade him. Number 1 suddenly sneered, then walked towards number 3. The muscles on his arms began to contract, revealing many green veins. "Number 1, you're going to kill me." Number 3's pupils shrank when he saw this. Everyone in the base, of course, including you. Number 1 took a step forward, swung his right arm in an arc, and punched Number 3's face hard, smashing half of his head into the wall. After pulling his arm out, Number 1's expression didn't change, and he continued to walk towards the control room. Along the way, he walked past the information room, specimen storage room, and Number 1's figure appeared outside the main control room. As soon as his figure appeared, the guards who had gathered outside the main control room immediately opened fire. A dense barrage of bullets suddenly came, riddling the wall behind him with thousands of holes. However, what made the guards of the base terrified was that when these bullets hit the surface of Number 1's body, they only made his skin slightly dented, and he lost the ability to move forward. Change to X bullets. The captain of the base guards hurriedly roared. Originally, he planned to use normal bullets to subdue Number 1, because the power of the X bullets was very likely to kill the precious experimental subject Number 1. However, he couldn't care less now. His duty was to protect the base, and he would not allow any mistakes. However, at this moment, Number 1's figure suddenly burst out, and he rushed towards them. First echelon, close combat, the rest of you, change your bullets. Following the captain's order, the guards in the first row pulled out the daggers tied to their calves, and rushed towards Number 1. At this time, Number 1 didn't need any weapons at all. He only relied on his physical strength to explode with unparalleled strength. The guards in the first row didn't even last for a moment before they were all killed. This scene really frightened the guards present. Fortunately, at this time, the bullets had been successfully changed, and they once again aimed the muzzle at Number 1. Wait. At this time, a figure hurried over from the back of the guards. Director Lee, hurry up and leave here. Number 1 is out of control. Seeing the person who came, the captain of the guards quickly blocked him behind, preventing him from rushing forward recklessly. Director Lee ignored the captain of the guards, and instead raised the remote control in his hand. Number 1, stop. Throwing the body of a guard in his hand to the ground, Number 1 turned his head to look at Director Lee, his expression full of sarcasm. Number 1, as long as I press this button, the chip embedded in your brain will explode. Now I order you to go to the experimental prison and lock yourself up. Director Lee scolded with a serious face, and at the same time, he shook the remote control in his hand, full of threat. Number 1 stuck out his tongue, licked the blood at the corner of his lips, and a hideous expression appeared on his face. Under Director Lee's astonished expression, Number 1 suddenly sprinted towards him. Looking at Director Lee, who obviously hadn't recovered from the shock, the captain of the guards immediately grabbed the remote control in his hand and pressed it hard. At this moment, Number 1 had already lost control, and his duty was to protect the base, so naturally, he didn't dare to neglect it. Even if he would be punished later, he would accept it. However, the scene of Number 1's head exploding in their imagination didn't happen. Under the shocked expression of the captain of the guards, a strong arm swept across his cheek and pinched Director Lee's head. Smack! Director Lee's head was crushed by a strong force, and blood splattered on the face of the captain of the guards. At this moment, the captain of the guards was completely dumbfounded. Looking at the fist that was gradually enlarging in front of him, there was only one thought in his mind. This group of researchers really wasn't reliable. The experimental subject that promised not to betray lost control, and now even a self-exploding chip had problems. My life is over,